As soon as you get off that white bridge,
sometimes it's okay.
Yeah, you talking about
on the other side of the river.
Hell no.
Yeah, Roosevelt Boulevard.
That's the best place to ride your bike. It's on the boulevard, man.
Fucking boulevard. You going to die in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, yo. Quiet on the set. Quiet on the set. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Phuck with Philly, live from South Street. It's your hosts, MC Alley, Rondo, Keenan from Limbo, Tourist and the Engineer, Aaron on Photog, and our special guest today, Tim McAleer. Give it up, guys. Give it up, guys. Give it up, guys.
What's up, man?
So Tim is the owner and founder of Founding Footsteps, which is a trolley ride throughout the city that combines comedy, history, and BYOB, and solely talks about the beautiful city of Philadelphia, which is what we love to talk about here at Phuck with Philly. So Tim, how about you tell us just kind of like, how you got started and really how you, a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point now where you're running this tour.
I got to this point now where I'm running this tour by repeatedly screwing up in life, pretty much.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I like the best of us.
I like to tell people I'm a failed comedian turned failed teacher, trying to make a comedic teacher. I bounced around a lot in my 20s from job to job. Finally graduated college, started teaching here in Philly in my early 30s, and then I needed a summer gig, and I started doing tours on top of a double-decker bus for a little extra money, and I just fell in love with it right away. And I think it was like day 3, I said to my wife, like my girlfriend at the time, I'm going to start my own tour company. And I think her response was, "You're delusional." So, she made me this deal. She said, "If you think you really want to do this, leave teaching 3 full years, work for this double-decker company for 3 full years, and if you still want to do it, we'll make a run at it." And so that's what happened. We would argue a lot because I was like, "What do you want me to learn? Like, I know how to do a tour. I'm good at this."
Yeah.
And inadvertently, I ended up learning where the gaps were in the industry, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But stuck it out for 3 years, which is miserable. I'm like 30-something years old, standing on top of a double-decker bus. If it's 20 degrees out and pouring rain,
you're in there.
And one person has to be up top, you got to be up top.
Oh,
and there's
shit.
always one person from like Norway that wants to be sitting on top of the bus.
I want to sit on top.
Yeah.
It's just like,
It's brutal.
Top
Yeah.
is closed.
Let me see the city, please.
This isn't that cold. Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
because you're fucking from 0 below.
Yeah. So I stuck it out for 3 years, and then that after the 3rd year, that fall, we got married, and we were on our honeymoon, and we took this BYOB comedy history tour in Asheville, Carolina, called Le Zoom is the company. And when the tour ended, my wife turned to me and she said, "It's been 3 years. When we get home, this is what we're gonna do."
Oh, shit.
So we got back from our honeymoon and we incorporated that December, and then May of 2016 we went public, and
Hell yeah.
we spent our first Saturday. I had 5 of my former students with me, and we hit the streets and we spent 7 hours in Old City walking around trying to sell tickets, and we didn't sell a single ticket. No.
Oh, shit.
And so I remember going home and I was sitting on my porch and I just had my head in my hands like, I can't believe I screwed this up. Like, this is just one more failure to add to the list. And my wife came out, she sat next to me, she put her hand on my knee and she said, "You're going to find a way to make this work." And then that night we got a phone call from this group of people that she had met during that day that said, "Hey, we couldn't take it today, but we want to take it tomorrow."
Okay.
And so we went with like 8 people. So I called a couple of my friends. I begged them to come, so it wouldn't look like they were the only people on the tour.
Oh, okay.
And
Good idea.
and then we just started going. And then we would every Saturday. It was just her and I. Every Saturday, the 2 of us, 5 hours. We'd walk the streets. We'd beg people to take free tickets, and it was impossible.
That's smart, though.
It is either going to be like I'm going to sell timeshare or this is going to suck.
Right.
And so we kept doing
free
that.
shit always feels like, it's like, why is this free?
There's got to be some kind of catch.
Yeah, there's a catch in there, isn't there?
So I would tell people, "Hey, listen, 15 minutes in, we're going to pull this trolley over, and if you want to get off, no hard feelings."
Yeah.
And so that would kind of
It's like a free sample almost.
Yeah, like,
wanna
if you want to
sample
stay, you
of this.
stay. It's free regardless.
Right.
Worst case scenario, you got to take an Uber ride back from Center City. So
I fuck with that.
Yeah.
people would hop on, and we started making some money on tips. And when we started in mid-May, we became the 76th tour company on TripAdvisor. So we were ranked number 76 out of 76, and we thought like that's
76ers.
a pretty cool number in Philadelphia.
Especially in Philadelphia, I was about to
That
say,
is
bro.
You gotta start
Not a
somewhere.
bad number in Philly. And
Perfect number.
by mid-August, we hit top 5 in like 4
Damn.
months.
Wow,
And then
man.
we were off and running. We didn't have to give out free tickets anymore. And so we've been going ever since. So we're in our 4th year.
Okay.
And it's tough. This is the first year now where I'm starting to see sales dip a little.
Okay.
Right? So this July, I didn't make as much money as I made last July.
Sure.
And that's scary because now it's like now I own 2 trolleys. I was renting them for the first 3 years,
Right.
and so now it's like crazy overhead. I have an admin, I have a driver, and so it's scary, man. But we're still pushing through, which is
But
fun.
in the grand scheme, from where you started, it's
incredible.
fucking.
I'm about to say it's a total 180.
It's like a lot of we had a guy on here, a young business guy, my buddy. He's like 24, and he ran his own business, and he was telling me, he was like, yeah, like the business kind of, it's not as like almost successful as I wanted it to be.
Sure.
And I was like, but from where it started, how much have you gained from this? He was like, oh, like I've only grown from this, like from where I started to where I am now. Because I feel like the dips and valleys always happen, and it's just kind of you gotta just the hills will deal for themselves. So it's kind of like you almost gotta just. And what I love about this too is like this is a Philly made thing, and it's not a huge market for that. So like, was that like when you went to? You said you did a tour. Where was that again? You said
in Asheville.
In Asheville. Was that the first time you realized like maybe I should do something like this, or was that something?
No, I
that
knew,
kind of style.
I literally knew. Like I said, I started doing these double-decker tours. Started training on a Monday, and like that Monday through Thursday, I was taking like 4 or 5 tours a day.
Okay.
And I would like listen to the tour, whatever was interesting, I would write down. I'd go home that night, and I would start researching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd actually been training sort of for it. I just use quotes, like people couldn't see me on the radio.
Well, you can see us.
Yeah.
This video podcast too. There
So I've been training for it for. I'm not a Philly native. I'm from New York. I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
But I've
Me
been
too, that's okay.
What part of New York?
Long Island.
Long Island.
Okay.
So.
I was from Brooklyn. I was born in Prospect. Yeah.
Oh, is that right? My
Yeah.
my grandfather grew up in an orphanage in Far Rockaway.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would have friends come visit, and the first friend that came out from San Fran. We grew up together on Long Island, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna give you a tour of Philly, and then I realized like. This is Wawa. I didn't know.
Yo, you'd be surprised.
That's the number one thing to show somebody.
Yo,
though.
we were
You're
talking
gonna
about-
be like, if you want to fucking
Yeah,
eat
that's
late
true.
night, you want a
Wow.
nice decent meal for a cheap price, you go to this fucking spot. This is
Yo,
what it
I
is.
lived here my whole life, and I be damn, like I don't barely know what the fuck is even here. I mean, I used to travel, like I used to, like last 3 years ago, I used to travel for my job all over the country, and every time I traveled, I would go everywhere, whatever that city had. Once I get home, I ain't do shit. I don't know why we do that.
Yeah.
I feel like when you travel, you realize how much you don't know about your city.
Yeah.
Like when you go to another
Someone
city,
said
and you're
everybody
doing all
else
the
knows
touristy
all these
shit,
things.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just like, damn, I don't even know this much about my own city.
Or you end up thinking like back home is shitty, but you don't know that you got all that same shit probably and more. And
That's something. That's something we really want to try to change. Like when I talked before, when I said the gaps in the industry,
Yeah,
the biggest gap is that no one markets to locals in tourism here.
that is true.
And that's something it's tough to get around for me. Is you go to a local and like I live here, why would I take a tour?
Right.
And so to try to tell them like I promise you, you're gonna step off this. You're gonna learn something about Philly. You're gonna have fun. You're gonna enjoy it.
Right.
It's tough to teach a local that. But once I get locals on my tour, they come back. Anytime friends visit, they bring them on the tour.
That's what's up.
We get a lot of repeat customers, which is cool. But
That's
I learned that me saying like not knowing anything, point out the Wawa. That's actually a bit that a good Philly comedian kid named Pat House. If you haven't heard of him,
Pat House.
check out Pat House. I
Sure.
just kind of stole his joke there, but I didn't know shit
But you
about the
redeemed
city,
us, that's right, yeah.
and so I didn't know shit about the city. So I set up there's an app called Trello, which maybe they'll sponsor you now. It's like
What is it called again?
Trello.
Trello.
Trello,
so
you know what? Shout outs Trello for
Yeah.
sponsoring our
Yeah, Trello
podcast.
sponsor
Yeah.
us.
Shout out Trello.
Two risks fuck with Trello.
It's,
Yeah.
So Trello fuck
So
with
it's
us.
interactive flashcards, right? So you can
okay.
like on one side you like have your heading and then you click on it, flip over, you can attach pictures, notes,
all
whatever
right.
you want.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so I set up these boards for shit about Philly, and did that way before I started giving tours.
Yeah.
And so then when I started to do tours, that knowledge started to click in. So by
Yeah,
day
yeah.
4, they threw me up on the bus like, all right, we're gonna see what you could do. 4 days in,
Yeah.
and like I felt like I already had one of the best tours in the city, and so I knew that day. But then it was a matter of like, all right, how am I really gonna go about this? How am I gonna find an angle here
Yeah.
where I could be different? So
That's awesome.
I knew what I wanted to do from day one. It took 3 years later and going on the honeymoon to find that angle.
Okay.
So I knew already what I wanted to do to answer, but I found the angle on that tour.
Okay, and you talked about being a teacher. So
was
did
about
you
to ask
did
that,
you
yeah.
teach history? Is that how you kind of got into this, or is that because I mean when I went on the tour guide, on the tour founding Footsteps, it was like you knew like so much shit. It's insane. Like most people that are historians don't even know the little things that you do. You knew like little things like I mean, I'm not gonna ruin all your stories, but
went on a tour?
yeah, I went on a tour with shout out PHL17. That's how we linked up. But hopefully you don't know about this podcast, Travis. But that's okay. But anyways, but like, did you know? Were you a history teacher? Was there a special? Was it a different grade? How did that?
No, I started at a Catholic school in Juniata.
Okay.
And so they make you teach everything.
Yeah,
so my degree was in English Lit.
Okay.
Which, by the way, it took me like 13 years to graduate college, literally, because I would just go for a semester and then not go for 2 years. And then go back,
okay.
right?
So
and then I finally
Smart
get
man.
my degree, and a week later, online, there was an article like the top 10 most useless degrees, and English Lit was like number 3 at the time.
Get the fuck out of here.
Now with the advent of
spent
social
12
media,
years,
people
yeah.
are starting to realize the importance of it, but not when I graduated.
Sure.
So I was teaching at a Catholic school. I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade history, 8th grade reading, 8th grade writing, 8th grade religion. And then you also had 1 week a month. You had to cover lunch and recess during your lunch and recess. It was brutal.
Yeah.
So I kind of started to get a little bit of interest there. But the big kick for me, I guess, initially with history was I took a screenwriting class in college. And
Nice.
I interviewed my grandfather. And he had this insane story that 80% of no one in my family knew. So we knew he grew up in an orphanage. We didn't know why.
Right.
I knew he was in World War II, but I didn't really know details. And it was shortly after my grandmother had passed. And they had this relationship, it was out of the Notebook, down to the fact when my grandmother passes away from Alzheimer's, right? So my grandfather at the end, he would show up at this home when the doors opened until they were like, you got to leave, And he was there every single day sitting by our side. And so I knew I could get him talking about her.
Right.
And so that's how I started. I started asking about her. And then once you get someone talking, I'm like, as you guys know, you can start slipping in other stuff and going down the road. And so I got him going down the road. And he started talking about his life. And it was just fascinating to me. And when he was done, I'm like, I'm gonna write a screenplay. And I did. I wrote this 180-page screenplay, which is it's not. I always say it's not The Godfather, but it's not Kangaroo Jack either. It's somewhere in the middle.
It's a very wide range though.
Out of 180 pages, I think there's 20 or so that I'm really proud of. 40 of it I would never let anyone look at, and then the rest of it is was it okay? But he had this insane story that I thought at the time was insanely unique. So I'll try to give a brief rundown. That's what I
Yeah, go ahead,
man.
man.
Dude, you have time.
He's 9 years old. He's got a 12-year-old brother and 2 little siblings. And my great-grandmother was constantly getting abused and by my great-grandfather. And so when my grandfather was 9 years old, he remembers his mom taking him by the hand and walking him down to a local speakeasy because the father's there drinking away all their money. And have to go. He would be the one to have to go in to get the money. And the father put it in his cap and put his cap back on his head and then grab the mom's wrist and tell her I'll see you later. And then he would have to listen to her getting beat constantly. And so when he's 9 years old, she couldn't take it anymore. So she ran away, which women don't do in the 1920s, right? So it's 1929. Depression hits. And so she runs away. The older brother, the 12-year-old, wakes up in the morning, sees his mom's gone. He tries to run away. The father calls an orphanage and says, come get my kids. So they come in a school bus. And so now my grandfather's got...
Wait, so if you don't mind me cutting you off, where, so the one child ran away. The one child ran away.
12-year-old tries to run away, yeah.
His older brother.
Right, and the other one you said tried to run away too, and he didn't quite get away before.
No, so the 12-year-old doesn't quite get her. The 12-year-old tries to run away.
Right.
My grandfather's next in line, he's 9. So he wakes up in the morning to find out that his mom is gone, his 12-year-old brother is gone, and he hears his dad on the phone with an orphanage to come get the rest of them.
Oh, okay.
This is in New York, yeah.
Okay.
So it's in Brooklyn. So school bus pulls
Great
up.
Depression time too, which is not a fucking nice place to be at in history.
School bus pulls up, a couple nuns on there. My grandfather's carrying his baby brother, and he's got his 6-year-old brother by the hand. They get on the bus. He remembers looking out the back of the bus and his father waving to them as the bus pulls off, right?
Jesus.
Dude, I'm about to tear up this shit.
They get to the orphanage.
It's a nice screenplay so far, man. I feel this right now.
They get to the orphanage, and they get off the bus, and another nun comes over, and she takes the baby away from my grandfather because he's not old enough to go to that orphanage. He's got to go somewhere else. So now he loses the baby brother as well. So him and the 6-year-old, they're in this orphanage. The 12-year-old, they had found him pretty quickly, I guess, but because he tried to run off, they sent him to a home for troubled kids.
Okay.
So he's not in the same place.
So
It's
instead
almost
of
like a
trying to
juvie.
figure out what the issue is, they just send.
Well, the grandfather's like, I can't take care of these kids by myself, so just take them.
Well, no,
Yes,
not
my
that. I was talking about
great-grandfather.
more so
It's almost like, you know how you have what is it? What's the company that takes kids now? Not-
DHS.
DHS Ice.
yeah. So I'm saying imagine calling them and being like, I can't take care of my own kids.
Right.
They'll automatically be like, okay, we're here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that was nothing. Like the 12-year-old going to a different place. That was, I mean, they was called like the orphan
working,
trains.
yeah.
They were putting orphans on trains and sending them out west to like go to work. Basically,
People couldn't afford kids back then, so it's
Oh, so
almost
that
like it
was
would help
a
them
common-
out if they did that.
I didn't know it at the
that's
time,
why
but
you
it was
said
fairly
that.
common. Yeah. So so now he's in his home. The first month that he's there, the home arranged for his mom and dad, my great grandparents, to come and visit him.
Yeah.
And during that time, somehow or another, it's the first time he's seen his parents in a month. Somehow or another, my great grandfather convinces my great grandmother, "Hey, we should get back together." They go home. They leave my grandfather in the orphanage. They never visit again. So from 9 to 17, he doesn't see either of his parents. The first time he gets a visitor after this is he's 16 years old, and he gets called down to like the headmaster's office, and it's his older brother who's now gotten out of whatever home he's in and has come to visit his little brother.
And he hasn't seen him in.
Right, and he can't. He's 18, 19 years old. He can't take care of another kid. He can't take care of himself.
Yeah.
But he gives him all the money he has in his pocket and walks like miles home because he feels so bad he can't get him out of the home. And then when he's 17, well, at some point during that, actually, he says the baby brother comes over to the orphanage, and he's like, they get called in, and his 6-year-old brother is there, and he's like, in the home, it was like, they didn't really interact too much, him and his brother. Right. But like, if the 6-year-old got in trouble and couldn't handle it, my grandfather would handle it. You know, like they would look after each other that way. Yeah. So the baby brother comes in, and he's like, they don't even know who this kid is. And he's like, all I really kind of remember is he had a bag of candy with him. He's like, and he didn't have it very long. Basically, my grandfather like jacked his baby brother's candy, right? But they would look out for him throughout the home. Yeah. So making this too long now. But when he's 17, he gets out. He goes. He doesn't know where to go. Yeah. So he tells this guy, it's called a precept, which would take you where you want to go. He says, "Can you take me and my family home?" So they take him home and knock on the door. His mom answers the door holding a baby, and there's like 6 more kids in the house. Oh, they got back together and started having more kids and never visited again. Wow. Just started a new family.
And these kids had no idea they had big
No idea.
I mean, he must have felt abandoned. I mean, what he tells you, that's the most abandoning feeling.
It's crazy how he holds no ill will towards his mother at all.
It's strange how that works, isn't it?
Because he understands. Wasn't she's getting beat.
He said like to get out of the home, you had to prove that you had like a bed for each kid, and he's like they would have like 3 kids would share a bed basically, or one would get the floor and then 2 would get the bed, and then you'd rotate on the nights, you know. Okay. So the first, he's like, his father wasn't even there. He's still at the bar like drinking the family money away. So the mom goes and gets the dad and brings him home. The first night he's there, the parents are arguing about him, and the mom's like, we got to help him, and the dad's like, we don't even know who this kid is. Argument escalates.
So wait, is he saying that because like he doesn't recognize?
He hasn't seen the kid in 8 years.
He's at this point. He doesn't even know if that's.
He didn't care from the beginning, right?
Yeah. So
he didn't care from the beginning.
He's almost delusional at the point where he's just like, I don't fuck. Like he just came in our life, kind of thing. Even though they did give birth to him and raise him till he was a certain age.
He never cared about his kids. I asked him about his first memory as a kid, and he's like, he was 6 years old, and his dad brought him home a baseball glove that he'd won in like a bet at a bar. But it was a glove for a lefty, and my grandfather's a right. So like he didn't even notice some was a right. You know what I mean? Like he didn't. So the first night the parents are arguing. Argument escalates. He sees his dad hit his mom, and he's like, the last time I saw that, I was 9 years old. I'm hiding under a table. Now I'm 17. So he grabbed my grandfather and pinned him against the fridge, and then held a knife to him. And he's like, look, it's your home. I'm gonna respect your wishes. I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna come back and check up on you. And you touch my mom again, and I'm gonna slit your fucking throat. And he's like, I meant it. And so then he leaves, and he joined the Civilian Conservation Corps, which was this initiative that Teddy Roosevelt set up, where you would go around planting trees and building roads and things like that. And he would send money back to his mom, and he would go and he would check up on her and all. And then he meets my grandmother, and he remembers every single detail about when he met her. She was wearing a yellow dress. It was at this. It was called like a sort of like a beef and beer in Philly, right? Okay. So you paid $1, and you went to like a high school auditorium.
Dollar party.
Half of it was like tables for food, and the other half was like dance, right? And he saw her walk in, and like he's like, it was like a movie, like everything else faded out. It was like just her. And then he goes over to the punch bowl, and he gets a tap on his shoulder, and he turns around, and she's standing there. She had somebody else introduce her to him, so he saw her, but she was the one that made the introduction. So then they start dating. They date every Friday night.
It's a wrap.
Religiously, yeah. So every Friday they're going out, and then he was in the bathroom shaving. And he's listening to a Giants football game on the radio. And I found that, do you guys remember when Kazaa was a thing? Like before LimeWire? It was basically LimeWire.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember Kazaa, but I do remember
LimeWire, right?
Sure,
yeah. Kazaa was the
Frostwire. Remember Frostwire?
Kazaa was the first LimeWire. We could download shit.
Oh,
so it was actually,
wasn't like Rhapsody? Wasn't Rhapsody the first one?
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Sorry.
Anyways.
I was actually able to download the clip he was listening to, and if you saw it in a movie, you would call bullshit because it seems to. The running back breaks free on a run. And the announcer's like, he's at the 50, the 40, the 30, the 20. we interrupt this broadcast to announce that Pearl Harbor has been bombed. And so he's like, he didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was.
Yeah.
So he goes to a map, looks it up, he sees it's Hawaii, and he's like, shit, I'm going to war. So then he goes to a payphone, because he didn't have a phone, and he calls my grandmother. My grandmother lived above a drugstore, and these like little details like this that really drew me in. Her family was so poor, they didn't have a phone either. So he would call the drugstore, and the guy would yell up to her and let her come down and use the phone.
Yeah.
So he yells up, my grandmother comes down, he's like, I'm going to war. And within a few months, he gets drafted. He was in the 103rd Infantry, which was replacement infantry. So they land in...
What's that mean? What's replacement infantry?
So you
replace the people that were just fucked up.
Yeah. So they land in mid-November in France. From mid-November until like late January, they only saw the inside of a building once. They were outside every single day in the coldest winter Europe has ever had. To this day, my grandfather despises the French. He's like, he's like, they would have a barn and they would have a guard outside with a rifle. Like, you weren't allowed to go in their barn. He's like, here we are liberating them, and like, you can't sleep in their barn. Yeah.
You know,
so,
fuck the French.
Yeah,
I'm
fuck
sorry.
the,
I'm gonna
yeah,
say it right
exactly.
now.
Yeah,
You know,
you.
my grandpa fought in World War II too. He actually he sent letters home every day. And he talked about, he was so poetic, it was insane. He was actually a doctor.
I would love to see those letters.
And I remember seeing this when I was young. I didn't mean to cut your story off or anything. But when I was younger, my parents told me, they're like, he actually his platoon was the first to find the concentration camps. And back then, no one knew what the fuck a concentration camp was.
Yeah.
And I actually come from a Jewish heritage. He was actually Jewish.
So they discovered concentration camps.
So he did. So he actually got a Bronze Star for finding the cure to like tuberculosis, not cure, a vaccine to tuberculosis, which was killing all the Jews in these concentration camps.
Okay.
He would send letters home every day saying, like, he would send it to my great grandma, and he pretty much explained. He actually explained the day that he actually wrote a letter. My mom saved it actually, which was like, "Hey, you know, things are getting light here. It's actually getting better. We're actually heading to a beach called Normandy in a few days."
Shut up.
I was just
Swear to
about
God.
to ask that.
And then
like
the next letter he sent, which was like a week after that letter, was like, "I saw hell. Like, this was hell."
Yeah.
He was like, and he was a doctor.
Wait,
And
so for all the
I
people
saw
that
this
don't know
book.
what Normandy is, like me, explain that real quick.
It's
So
like
Normandy was
Saving
D-Day.
Private
So
Ryan.
D-Day
I don't
is,
even remember
have you seen Saving Private Ryan?
haven't seen
The
that.
start of Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
D-Day was just a bloodbath. So pretty much the U.S. troops rolled in. They thought it would be fine.
So So the Germans were so heavily fortified.
Yeah.
So on this beach with a hill, they had just cement barricades,
Right.
with an opening to shoot out at.
Oh.
Gone
And it was just
motherfuckers.
so they're just sitting ducks on this beach, and they're trying to storm this beach, and it just takes. It's just like he said, it's a bloodbath.
Yeah. And my grandpa wrote
He
back and
survived
was just
that.
like, he survived, but he was a doctor. And then he also, I remember seeing this, and this kind of gets to me too, because this is, you know, I've been interested in history like my whole life, and really I think it's like you said, because of your grandfather. Like, you hear these stories and you're like, wait, like this was insane. Like we live the softest fucking life of all time. I just
Yeah.
want to be real. I just want to be real.
We
We
gotta
are
get-
goddamn blessed.
I
Like,
gotta
these
keep
are
reminding
real
myself.
men.
I
These
saw
are real
people on
men that did this
Instagram.
shit,
I
and women.
saw people on Instagram coming over to America in boxes.
Yeah.
After I saw that shit, I'm like, yo, all
Man,
right, we
truly
need to be the
blessed,
fuck
you know?
thankful,
Yeah.
'cause
But-
you getting in a fucking box just to
Yeah,
get in here.
but I saw these pictures and I remember it was like, and I thought it was a pile of logs, right? And I started looking a little deeper, and I saw like hands, and I saw heads.
Wait,
and I
wait,
saw
wait, wait.
feet. And it was bodies
that's insane.
of like killed Jews that he
Yeah.
took pictures of on his camera back then.
Wow.
And I remember, like, I haven't seen those pictures since, but yeah, it was just a crazy time, man. So your grandpa is in the war, and
So
then,
he gets drafted.
okay.
So like 2.5 months, they haven't seen the inside of a building.
How old was he? Like 17?
He's no, at this point he's probably 1940s, so he would be 21, 22 around there.
Man.
So
Just
he
imagine, man. That's all I'm saying, man.
200 people in his unit. Out of the 200, 180 of them died. 160 in one day in the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh,
So
shit.
the war is pretty much over. But Hitler's going to try to make one last big offensive push.
Blitzkrieg.
Right?
Yeah.
So they finally get inside a building. They're in this log cabin, and they're playing cards, and they're smoking cigars. In my head, I always wonder about the guy that used like the last of the hot water in the shower, right? Like how pissed is everybody else at him.
Beat
And
their
so they're
ass.
in there. Yes.
I got a gun.
Yeah.
I got a
We
gun.
about to fucking die here. I can't
Yeah.
even take a shower. What the fuck? My balls gonna be smelling hard as shit when I'm doing this.
So they're in there for a couple hours, and somebody comes bursting in the door and like, let's go. We're going to the front lines. And so they load them up into like Humvees, like Jeep Wranglers, basically,
Yeah.
right? And they drive them to the bottom of this hill. And now they're supposed to. They get out. They're gonna go up this hill, back down in the other side into a town that the Germans have taken. And so my grandfather's a gunner, so he supplies ammunition. Even though he's a sharpshooter, he's the guy supplying the ammunition.
Sure.
So there's two people in front of him that he's gonna supply the ammunition for. My grandfather's got a crate of ammunition. They're storming up a hill. A mortar lands.
He's heavy as fuck.
Two guys in front of him drop dead instantly. Shrapnel hits my grandfather under his knee and sends him flying down into the snow. Saves his life. There's a German sniper in a clock tower firing at them, but the hill
Dude, it's just like
is
Saving Private
protecting him from the bullets. He's like, but he's watching bullets pierce the snow around him, and he lays there until he sees an American tank, and he knows the first thing that the tank does is they take out the sniper, and he knows it's safe for him to get up. So he gets up and he takes like this MASH type.
Like
I don't know if you guys MASH is probably beyond you, but they, like
Mesh Mine?
MASH. No, it was an old TV show called MASH. It was like
Yeah.
was-
It was almost like a comedy version of Vietnam.
yeah, right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so they all doctors. So they take him like this tent type hospital. And so the first doctor comes over. They look at his knee like, it's a flesh wound. You'll be back in the front lines in no time. The guy was never able to kneel again. And they're like, it's a flesh wound. The second doctor comes over and he's like, take your boots off. So he takes his boots off and they're like, you're lucky your feet didn't come with it. He had such bad frostbite that's actually what got him out of the war. Because it was so cold, they would only get issued 2 pairs of socks. And you would wear one over your shoulder so your chest heat would dry it out during the day.
Like in
And
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, it was
Lieutenant Dan said, "Take care of your
insane. So that's yeah. Well, Lieutenant Dan lost his
Yeah,
you
take
got
your
no
feet,
legs,
and he had no legs.
Yeah. So
Lieutenant
that's
Dan,
what gets him out of the
Got
war.
no
Yeah.
force.
And then he comes, and then the best part of the interview is he says, and then I came home and I married your grandmother and I had your father, and don't ask me about how I raised him because it's none of your fucking business. that was it. That was end of interview.
Dude,
That
he
was
could
it.
raise anybody however the fuck he wants.
could at
after
that point.
That's
Yeah.
all I'm
God
saying,
damn.
Absolutely.
man. And
Yeah.
the shit that he.
But it's funny that you said like we're the softest generation. So Saturday was a rough day work wise, and I got home and we had reservations 10 o'clock at Zahav because it's like now the top rated restaurant in the country, right?
Sure.
I went on 60 days in advance and at 12:30 in the morning, and I could only get a 10 p.m. reservation because in 30 minutes they sold out everything else.
Oh, shit.
And for me, I'm like bitching, like I don't want to go. I had a rough day at work. My rough day at work was a trolley broke down. I had to get it towed.
Oh, shit.
His rough day at work was 155 of his buddies were slaughtered next to him.
Died.
And I'm like, I gotta go to the
Why
best restaurant in
me?
the country tonight. This
Yeah.
is terrible.
Why
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Snipers.
So that got you into history, or
That
like,
got
how
me
did
into
that
history,
to-
so I started reading books. So he gave me this book called Soldiers of 44,
Okay.
which is about the Battle of the Bulge, and that really got me into it. And then I read another book about the first few days after Normandy, which nobody really talks about because Normandy was so insane. But for like 2 weeks after Normandy, we advanced an eighth of a mile a day.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
Damn.
Because the
No, we're
Germans
out for blood.
Well, the Germans were so heavily fortified, we could only move an eighth of a mile each day.
Shit.
So they had these things, they were called hedgerows, which are like bushes, right?
Yeah.
Well, our reconnaissance planes, when they flew overhead, they thought they were just normal bushes and didn't realize they were how high they were.
Yeah.
And the French used them as cattle pens. And so the Germans, any opening, the Germans had their artillery on that opening. So we couldn't move through these openings because you try to, all the artillery is going to land on you. So for 2 weeks, they would like literally crawl an eighth of a mile a day. That was it. Until some like good old boy from the Midwest who was a farmer. And he's like, hey, we had these big bushes on my farm and we couldn't get rid of them. So we put like a plow in front of our tractor, and so they started mass ordering these plows and they put them on the tanks, and that was able to get them through the so it was just some fucking redneck who was
Isn't
like
that crazy?
yeah.
how
What
you
the fuck?
didn't-
You didn't teach history?
I did not teach history.
What'd you
No,
teach? What'd you
I did. Well, I did. It wasn't my my
But it was
wasn't
like
all everything,
what
right?
grade did you teach, if you don't mind me asking?
6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay,
Oh,
so
so
it was
you
like
taught
it was.
everything.
Yeah.
You did teach. I mean, I learned about World War II starting then.
Yeah,
mean,
I did. I got to teach
in-
Civil War. I could teach
And in
World
Hebrew
War
school,
II.
I
Yeah.
learned a lot about World War II when I was young.
I'm
so-
sure they focused on it a
Yeah,
lot in
yeah.
Hebrew school.
It
Yeah,
was-
yeah,
It was pretty shitty
yeah.
for us.
You're like,
to be
this was not a
honest,
good
yeah.
time. Yeah.
This was not a good time.
Yeah.
For
You
us,
said students. You said so when you first started at your company. You said students were your first employees, like your former. Students?
Yeah, so kids who I taught in 8th grade that were now freshmen in college at that
Right.
point.
So
So
what'd
it's been
you-
it's
what'd
been
you
5
look for?
years.
Like, did you recruit them or they? Like,
They
how
were-
did that work?
It was my first teaching class,
Oh, okay.
and I came in mid-March because they had already run out 3 other teachers,
Damn.
and so I'm the 4th guy coming in mid-March, and
That's junior ed. That's like a crazy.
not
number.
yeah. I mean, it was a Catholic school, so it was not, like you're not getting like the worst of the kids because parents paying for it, but you still had some rough kids there.
Yeah.
And it was fun. So I came in my first day of teaching, and I was gonna be like the guy that was gonna come in and like inspire his kids, right? Like I'm gonna, So I bought a notebook for everybody, and I'm like on the subway and coming in. And I'm like, what's I'm gonna do like a quote of the day and have them journal about it.
Sure.
And on the way in is a quote on the subway about like the power of education. I'm like, oh, this is a sign, right?
It's a sign.
So I come in, I write the quote on the
Literally, it's a
board,
sign.
and I hand out the journals. I'm like, I want you guys all to journal about this, and like, if you think it's lame, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you know, back it up. Tell me why it's lame.
Right.
The first essay I read, the kid wrote, I've seen this movie a million times before. The young Caucasian's going to come into the inner city school and inspire his kids with words. He wrote, "Who do you think you are, Michelle Pfeiffer?" And it was to this day it's the most brilliant essay.
He roasted. That's a roast.
Yeah, oh, it's brilliant. It was.
But it was a brilliant roast, right?
Brilliant. It was
Graded
brilliant.
as?
It
What'd
was
you
brilliant.
grade
So
it?
you're
Oh,
like,
that's
I
an A+
kind of
right there.
respect you saying this to me right now.
I pulled him, like, he comes back from lunch. I'm like, I told him after the hallway, and I'm like, I read your essay. And he's like stumbling over his words. I was just kidding. I'm like, it was hilarious. I'm like, it was absolutely hilarious. And so I was like, hey, why don't you go home and read, there's a poem by Langston Hughes called Theme for English B. And it's a similar thing, but a college professor tells his kid, like, go home and write it. And so he goes home, and the whole thing is like, the college is at the top of the hill. I live at the bottom of the hill. You don't know my world, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the kid comes back the next day without me asking. I just want him to read it. He comes back the next day with an essay about it. And he picks up on all the symbolism. He writes about the power of words. So he went from mocking me to like, so it went from being my first big L as a teacher to becoming my first big win the next day.
Good shit,
And
man. Good
Dub
shit.
City.
it was a cool,
Dub City out here.
So, but so it was great in that aspect. I could hit kids in that way. I could reach kids in that way. I could not handle the X's and O's. I was so unorganized and so unstructured, and that like you can't handle yourself as a teacher that way.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you say X and O's, you mean like telling a kid.
Grading,
Lesson
probably,
plans,
yeah, all that things.
Reading the essays that
So,
you've assigned them.
Is that something you have to like? Do you have to like give to a department for them to accept or something, or like how much freedom do you get as a teacher? Because I feel like
I always wanted that too. That's a good
yeah,
question.
like is it
some of my
really
teachers were
your
cool as
lesson
fuck.
plan, or is there still an agenda that you need to teach kind of thing?
It used to be like you could just take it from the teacher before you, right?
Yeah.
But now it's
They make you go through all this shit, don't they?
you've got to hit every, because every
Angle.
kid learns differently, right? So
Yeah.
how are you reaching your kids who learn through audibly? How are you reaching kids who learn through textile? And you got to like account for all this, and then you've got to have like, this is for your top tier, this is for your middle tier, this is for your low tier. It's everything has to be
X's
modified.
and O's, yeah.
And it's like it's insane, man. I tried. I got switched over to a charter school in West Philly, like 69th and Callow Hill,
Oh, okay.
and it was rough, man. Like all the
69th
kids were
and
bust.
Callow Hill. Is that,
All the students were bussed in from 44th and Haverford though, which is
That's not Cap.
44th and Haverford is.
Is that
Oh,
Cap?
no.
Yeah.
I thought you meant Haverford, like mainline.
Oh
Is
no,
that-
no,
That's
no,
Cap?
the
That's
street
not
house.
Cap, right?
No, sure, yeah.
69th and Callow Hill is like it's not bad. It's by Cobb Creek, like where the golf course is.
Oh, never mind. I'm
Right?
thinking about
Is
different
that
schools.
Westfield?
Sid Booker's.
It's
Yeah.
That's West.
So
I'm thinking
isn't
about
Sid
Cap.
Booker's
I'm
like
thinking about
the
school
shrimp joint where Roosevelt Boulevard and Broad? That's Cal Hill.
No,
And
that's we're
Broad.
talking about West Philly though.
Oh, so yeah, no, he's
Yeah,
way
yeah.
further
Oh,
down.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
thinking
Yeah.
about something
So
Sorry,
they, no, that's no problem. It's actually, it was near the original, not the original gyms, maybe the original gyms. There's anyway.
Yeah.
But that was that. So it was tough. So here I am. I'm this white kid from the suburbs, teaching in an inner city school, 99% African American. We're a Title I school, which means majority are in poverty. And I was teaching first grade, and the biggest thing for first grade is structure and organization, and those are my two biggest weaknesses. And it was a disservice to my kids. Like I was not, I was good. Like I said, I was a good mentor, and my wife and I would do things like that. But you get to see like the screwed up end of things. You see like how things are systemically put in place to keep kids where they are.
Oh yeah, of course.
But you also see the other side of the coin, where parents aren't valuing they don't understand the value of education,
Right.
or maybe when they grew up, it wasn't given to them.
Yeah.
so
That's what I
they
always
don't
say.
trust it. They
I
don't
always
trust
say
it.
that usually the problems. It's sad to say, but it sometimes starts at home. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
where the foundation is. You gotta like.
Yeah.
If dealing with parents, some parents are very particular. Some parents are very anal
sometimes
about
that's
things.
what-
Some
Yeah,
parents
you
don't give a
can't-
fuck. You have to
Yeah.
deal with not just the kids, but then the people behind them too.
It was just the kids, it would be fine.
Yeah.
It was the
Yeah.
people behind it. I felt like there was always two types of parents. You had the parents who didn't understand value of education and so their kids were running wild. And then you had the mom who was like a single mom working 3 jobs, busting
Sure.
her ass to get by.
And it's like, don't
you know?
bother me about it.
Yeah.
Give
And-
my
well,
kid
no,
an
but they
education.
were great. They were there.
Sure,
whatever
sure.
you needed, you always knew which kids were gonna be good when you talked to the parents, and your parents were like, it was either, hey, I got your back, whatever you need, I'm gonna do, or you would be like, well, what did you do to make my child act like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like,
Oh,
"What did I
shit,
do?
yeah,
What do you
like,
mean?"
I'm doing my
So
job.
that was
What the
the-
hell?
I'm trying to help.
That's sick. I
I'm
feel
only
like
here
that's
to
sick though. You got to see them on a few of your students on the other side, like after they were in college and like.
That's the cool thing. We kept, especially that first class. That first class, I'm still really tight with. I would say I had like almost 30 kids, and I would say like 15 of them keep in contact with me.
Oh, yeah.
2 of them, I went to their high school and their college graduation.
Oh, shit.
And we still, Facebook friends and all. I wouldn't become Facebook friends with them until they graduated high school.
That's very smart. That's very smart to do. You got to cover all bases. That's
Cover
fair.
all your bases.
But,
What do you think about the curriculum, though? Because I was talking about that the other day. Like,
You try talking to Mike more, Phil. My bad.
We spend more money on, like,
we
spend way more money on other shit than we do, like, education, I feel like, here in America. Like, I just know when I was in school, I was like, why the fuck am I learning this? Well, maybe not that young, but
we don't
more
teach
towards like
life
high school and
skills
shit.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Like you don't come out of high school knowing how to balance a checkbook.
Nothing.
Knowing
It's like
how,
they leave
like
you
about
blind.
like your credit score, things like that.
That's what. But I feel like that's what you need right out of high school.
Yeah.
It's like how to develop life skills.
I think
Like tech
it's
school or something.
Instead of knowing the fucking Pythagorean theorem. When was the last time you knew about the Pythagorean theorem?
That's probably not having.
What is that?
I think that, but I think
You don't
that's
even
like,
know.
what type of skills?
Yeah.
I was wondering like what type of skills did you take from being a teacher to like, cause you pretty much
To
teach
this.
now. Like you're teaching people about the city. Like what type of skills you take?
I think it's sharpened some of my skills. So I've always been fairly good at knowing how to approach people, right? Because everybody's gonna respond differently, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
and I started coaching at a young age. So I coached baseball, and I knew like my pitching
You a Philly
staff,
fan?
like I'm a Yankees fan, man. But Philly's, I'll fuck with Philly for the
How about
National
you?
League,
Yeah.
It's the moment
as
of
long
truth.
as they
How about
don't
you?
play in the World
What's
Series.
How about you, Alistair?
Me? All right, so ready.
This is the moment of
I don't
truth.
really like baseball at all.
Okay.
I'm a huge Sixers fan because when I moved here, I became a basketball fan.
Talking about baseball.
They had Dollenberg. They had fucking when Drew Holiday and fucking
Thaddeus
all them
Young,
won 7
Lou
games
Williams.
with Boston, who won 7 games with Miami, who won
That's my
7
shit.
games with the Spurs, won the championship. So that was we had Thaddeus Young on there.
We're talking about baseball.
Elton Brand.
Are you a Phillies fan?
Oh no!
I question.
To be honest, man, I'm really
He's scared to
not.
answer. He's
My
scared
man's
to
got a
answer.
gritty shirt on. Yeah, that's what I say. Yeah, I see.
Oh
it. I feel it.
Paul Carpenter.
Hey, okay, you got to, man. You got to. All right, that's fair. That's fair.
Oh, yeah.
Warming.
Big Flyers fan? I'm guessing.
I'm not
Hockey
a big hockey
fan?
fan. I'm still.
Me
I never
neither.
went to,
I can't get it. I don't know,
here's the
man.
thing, so I grew up.
I sound shitty for
I
saying
wasn't
that.
a big hockey fan. I wasn't a big football fan. I would watch
Sure.
and like. I grew up a Giants fan, and I
Me
like,
too.
I
I still am a
loved
Giants fan,
watching
I'm
the
not gonna
Super
lie.
Bowl. I rooted for the Eagles in the Super Bowl, but I feel like I can't call myself an Eagles fan unless I suffer for like 50 years, right? Like it's not fair to like jump in
Hop
now.
on it, yeah,
So I couldn't
yeah,
really,
yeah.
I couldn't cross the bridge right now.
That's fair.
But go back. So like I had, when I was coaching, like I knew there was some kids like you'd have to go to the mound and like and coddle them and be like, hey, whatever, you give up a home run right now. Tomorrow you're still my guy. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And all the kids, you go to the mound, and be like, hey, listen, shut the fuck up and listen to what I have to say. And like everybody's gonna respond
Gotta do it.
differently.
You gotta do it.
So I think you
gotta
learn
do.
that. I think you learn that in teaching. The biggest skill that I think I learned that I'm trying to implement, and it's kind of the next phase of what I want my company to become, is learning that if you give people an opportunity that aren't used to having an opportunity, they will embrace it. They will run with it.
100%.
So,
Amen. I believe that.
we
Give everybody a
You want
chance.
to drink? You can have.
there's a great
whatever
okay,
that
thank
is.
you.
Good.
There's a great Bob Dylan line, right? If you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. So
Yeah.
one thing I noticed in my last year of teaching, I had gone to Memphis and I visited the Civil Rights Museum there, which is inside the Lorraine Motel where King gets shot, and they have this whole thing. It's incredible. And so
It's a Lorraine Hotel. Where in Memphis too?
what's that?
You said it's the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis.
Lorraine Motel in Memphis. Yeah. So that's so where he got shot is where the museum is now. That motel is now the museum.
I don't know why.
And so they had this thing about his speech called the mountaintop speech, and he gives it like I think it's the night before he dies, and he goes to this church. He doesn't want to go, but it's filled to the rafters, huge thunderstorm, and they like you gotta go, like everybody's here for you, you gotta go. And he had been getting death threats and stuff, and so you watch, it's insane. Like while he's giving the speech, there was a screen door behind him that kept slamming shut because of the storm, and he would jump every time, and then he says during the speech, like, I've been to the mountaintop. I may not get there with you, but we'll get there together. And he says something about how longevity has its place. It's not for him, but it has its place. Like, he predicts his death like 2 different times. It was this great speech. So we had an MLK Day of Service. And so I put together this presentation around that speech. And it went over pretty well. And so the director of the school was like, hey, can you go around the upper classes and do this for the kids that weren't there? And I was like, well, I don't want to do the same thing because some of them were there. I'll do something different. So I started looking into things. There's this amazing mural in West Philly of Dr. King. It's a 2-story mural.
Where is it?
It's, I want to say 34th and Haverford. and
I probably seen it. I think I've.
it's on the grounds of where he gave a speech for sanitation workers. And then that's the thing too that people don't really like remember about King. It wasn't just civil rights. It was it was for poor people as well. He was trying to raise up aim. But through like researching that mural, I found out he gave a speech at Barrett Middle School called "What is Your Life's Blueprint?" And so he goes on. He gives a speech all over the country. But the first time was at Barrett Middle School in West Philly. And during it, he talks about poverty. So we have the highest number of poverty in America, highest number of deep poverty in America, which is living at less than 50% of the poverty line, right? So
Wait, so you said deep. You said it one
we
more
have the
time?
highest number of poverty,
Right.
and the highest number of deep poverty.
Deep
Poverty.
I thought you said deep poverty. I was like, hold on, wait, let me get that.
Yeah, no, it's
What's
Jay
deep poverty?
Poverty's
Rich
brother. So it's you're living at less than 50% of the poverty line. So a family of 3, it's an income of less than $12,000 a year.
Oh,
so we have 160,000 people that live in deep poverty.
Yeah.
About 11% of our population. Almost 26% is in poverty. So King is addressing that, and he's telling the kids to stay in school despite their economic hardships. And it's where one of his most famous quotes, called the street sweeper quote, like, if you're going to sweep streets, do it the way that Michelangelo painted paintings and that kind of thing. So I read the speech to my middle school kids, and then I challenged them, like, hey, what can we do to get involved in our school? And so we came up with this idea. I had a group of kids that would give up their lunch and recess every day. They'd come down to my first grade class, and they had the first graders read to them. And before that, like, trying to get a room full of 27 first graders to sit down and read for 20, 30, it's
not
like
happening.
No,
it's pretty
it's
Me
like
in
trying
first grade,
right.
I'm walking
It's
around.
trying like
I was
it's
a
like
bad
trying to
little
herd
kid.
wildcats.
I was
I'm
a bad
happy.
little
You,
kid.
yo, you're lucky you didn't teach us. Yo.
They are all over the
I was a bad
place.
little kid.
I taught 26 of you, believe it or not. I mean,
At the same time.
So yeah,
You used to act fucking stupid.
Yeah, real shit.
right. But if you had an older kid in the school, who was like 6 years older than you, who was like, hey, come sit and read. I want to see how you do. Your mentality is gonna change now because now you get this older kid showing interest in you and you want to impress them, right? And it worked. The kids would sit there, read. It was successful.
Interesting.
And then the year ended, and these kids like, well, what are you gonna do? And so that's when I first started doing these tours. And I would tell that story in West Philly, and this girl one day was like, hey, I'm gonna build you a website. You start a program. So we finished our 5th year. This would be our 6th. So for the first 4 years, 8 weeks over the summer for 4 hours a week, I hired out of pocket a reading specialist and a writing specialist with 15 inner city high school kids. We would break them into 3 groups, 5-on-1. They would get 5-on-1 reading training for an hour, 5-on-1 writing, and then 5-on-1 with me for an hour doing some type of mentor thing. We'd break down a speech or a poem, whatever.
That's
awesome.
So we did that for the first 4 years, and then this past summer, as my company's grown a bit, I instead of hiring some teachers, I hired some tour guides, and we spent 8 weeks, same amount of time, researching, writing, learning how to present an African American history tour. So the top student graduated high school about a month ago. Before the summer ends, she'll be launching that tour as her own company. So she gets a third, nonprofit gets a third, and then she's got to reinvest the other third back in the community.
Okay.
Because that's another big thing that you learn is like in inner city community, the money generally doesn't stay in the community.
Yep.
Right? So you gotta
It
try
goes
to
by
keep-
big business. Big business comes, swoops in.
You hit it right
There's
on
no
the
mom and pop shops because I feel like every good job I've had is
Right.
not a big industry.
That's
It's
a
like
fact.
when I'm investing in myself or I'm investing in in something that is not a huge corporation. It's like a mom and pop kind of shop.
Rule number 1: nobody wants to be working anyway. You know what I mean?
right.
But the fact that like,
Be your own boss.
if I know the guy that like, he's kind of cool guy, and he runs all this shit, it kind of makes it that much kind of. It's
Sweeter.
almost like
you
a
know
friendship.
the back.
you
It's
have
like
a
there's
stake in it,
wholesome,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a wholesomeness to it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that corporation shit, you're just.
It's
a
like
number.
you're
They
just
don't
a
care about
fucking. You're a pawn in this whole game.
You're a number. They
Right.
can
It
replace
doesn't
you
make
with a drop of
sense.
the
That's
dime.
why small businesses and personal owned businesses is important. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
think
we
it's
see it all the time, like Sod and like people that own their own shit. I feel like that's important because these corporations are trying to come in and like
Right.
They
run
did.
the places
They're pretty
that
much doing
we
it now.
live, and they don't know.
But
about
they'll
it,
fuck you up every time.
But you
They'll
can
fuck
find
every
out shit
time.
like Asheville. That's the beauty of Asheville. They don't let corporations into their city.
Yeah.
2 snuck in Urban Outfitters, and then Budweiser bought out Wicked Brew, and so they took over the Wicked Brewery, which started in Asheville. And the people in Asheville like almost burned down Wicked Brew. They were so angry about it, right? But there's no Starbucks, there's no McDonald's within the city limits. It's all outside, and you see like how they hold on to the city now, right? And it's like, a lot more opportunity there.
Yeah.
But it is tough. It's tough. Like I'm one of 3 bus companies in the city. The other 2 are Big Bus and City Sightseeing, which are both global.
Which one is the
The red
talking about
Jones
the tour?
by Reading Terminal.
Which
what
one is the
that?
boat one? Didn't they get
They
fired?
they done. They're done. Yeah.
They
They
should
killed
sunk
too many
in
people.
there.
Yeah, you're only as a tour company.
Too many motherfuckers.
As a tour company,
That's what I
you're
heard
allowed to
too.
kill 7 tourists. As a
They
tour,
had-
yeah.
bro, they had
That's
holes
it.
in their
That's
boat.
it. I'm
You
at
hit
4.
8. When you hit 8,
I'm at 4. Once you hit 8, that's it. You're done. You're done. You gotta now. I gotta start being really selective. You know what I mean? I can't just willy nilly start.
Yeah, if someone has a hard promise, that's their fucking.
That's not on you. That
No
one's
one
not on
over,
you.
no
It's
one
not-
over 60.
No, they
When
die
does
at
it-
natural
When
causes.
does it come in that it's your fault?
It's got to be premeditated. That's how it works.
So it's got to be
It's
like
gotta-
something that was like
Yeah.
plotted out.
Yeah.
They got
Like
some text
your tire
messages
rode
and
them
shit.
over. That's
You're not-
yeah.
Okay.
What did they even have? What they had, like a car?
No, it was a
It was
duck.
a-
It was a duck, John.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry.
It
Wait,
was
wait,
like
the bus
they were
was
old
in-
World War
bus
II
first,
like amphibious boats, like they could drive on land.
Yeah.
But like the
Yeah.
average car has like
was
6
lit,
blind
bro.
spots.
They
Those
had
things have like
cameo
80
there.
because there's a fucking sternum in front, so you can't see.
I did one of those.
Yeah.
I did a bunch
I
of
never
those.
went on one, but
No, they're
man, I
done.
didn't.
They give you a
I probably
duck
would've been
whistle
on
and
that
shit.
fucking-
That
shit used to be fun.
my
Yeah, I
first
like it.
season was their last season, which helped me a lot because then
Oh,
they
shit.
left and they were the niche tour, and then they
Yeah,
left
I
and
heard
I
about
became the
that.
niche tour.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But-
so
That's what's
what,
up.
what do you think, like Tim, like what's different about yours than other people's? Like what
In terms of the bus
classifies you?
tours,
Yeah, sure.
so I gave pretty much the same tour on the double decker that I do now.
Yeah.
My double decker tour wasn't half as good as my tour now because 80% of the people that take the double decker tour are taking it for the views or for the hop on hop off aspect. And for that, it's great. It's a great way to get around the city. Like
Sure.
for it costs 2 Ubers,
Yeah.
you can use it all day to get around the city.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to compete with, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not the same. You're not gonna get that personal experience,
Exactly,
you know.
yep.
And you'll have 6 people at least each day working for them, right? 2 of them are gonna be really good. 2 of them are gonna be okay. 2 of them started the day before.
Yeah.
And and you don't know what you're gonna get. There's no consistency to it.
Sure.
But they can come in and they can really make things difficult, which they do. So, like I said, it's me and my wife versus 2 global companies in terms of vehicle tours, and I can't get into hotels because they pay off all the concierges, and I knew what they paid, so I went in offering a little more and like, hey, it's not just us getting paid; it's above us as well. I can't get in hotels. I can't get into
they're
the.
fucking
This
they're
is
sniping you out.
This is gonna get me. This is gonna get me
This goes back to
shot.
what we're talking
No.
about.
I
mean,
can't
it's
get.
up to you.
I can't
We
get
get
into the
sniped
visitor center because the guy hands large envelopes of cash to the director of the visitor center, and that is a fucking fact. And
Shit.
yeah, that's you're getting exclusive here. So that is
Let it out.
and
Let it
yeah,
out.
it's probably gonna ruin my company, but whatever.
we'll talk about it
It's
later.
tough. So
This
but
isn't
you,
live, so
Talk
it's
your
fine.
shit.
you can't
just
you know
talking shit.
you can't get in, so it's tough to it's really hard. How do you compete with that?
Exactly.
And so you try to like, all right, let me try to partner up. So I did this Christmas tour
Yeah.
that went viral, and so that's kind of what set my company off. So I started it 3 years ago. I ran it twice as a fundraiser, and then 2 years ago I was going to do 2 fundraisers and 1 for friends and family. November 28th, my wife and I had just had our first and last child. He's 3 weeks old.
It's a good number.
This person from Philly Voice, who will always remain one of my favorite people in the world, she writes this article about it because she saw a Facebook post online and thought we were running the tour. We weren't.
Yeah.
Article goes viral. So in 3 days, all of a sudden, our phone starts ringing off the hook. We didn't even know she had written it.
Yeah.
In 3 days, we sold out a little over 30 tours
Oh,
for the
shit.
month of December.
Damn.
Shit, that's shit.
This September, that same article had been shared 70,000 times.
Fuck.
September 7th, somebody else our phone starts ringing off the hook again. We went from 2 tours in year 1 to a little over 30 in year 2 to in year 3 this past December, we sold out over 200 tours. So just in the month of December, I did 5,000 tickets from January 1st to November 30th. In the month of December, I did 5,200 tickets. I doubled my revenue in 30 days. It was insanity, right? To the point where I don't know if I can do that again.
Oh,
and
shit.
so I reached out to.
I'm about to
I
say,
reached
are
out
you the main person like running all this shit?
no
Or you
one
have
else.
people
Well,
who,
now people now they know the numbers. So we'll just bleep out those numbers.
Oh, yeah, no, well, you
yeah,
ain't
I
got
was
you ain't
gonna
got spilled it.
But I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
we had I had my 2 vehicles that I owned, and I was renting 2 vehicles from this guy who
Okay.
screwed me over, and like I paid the whole month in advance, and they took off with his vehicles.
Oh,
So I started going through one of these global companies,
Yeah.
and so in mid-January, I'm like, well, let me reach out to this guy. Maybe we could work together. And he called me and just screaming at me on the phone, like, I found out you have 2 of your own vehicles, and but like. I'm like, what? You want me to apologize? Because I'm like,
yeah, I'm about to say, what the fuck is that? Why is
I'm
that
fucking
your
doing
turn it
okay.
up.
Like, what are you?
I got my fucking
I
money
own
right now.
Yeah,
What is going on?
I own
That's
2.
nothing to do with it.
What is this?
I own
What
2
is-
trolleys. You own a fucking complex in South Philly.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The guy has a baseball field on his property because he likes that's lit up at night. because he wanted to have a softball team. So he has his own fucking baseball field.
worried
Like
about
he's got, the guy's making, and he got it because his fucking father started the first horse and carriage company in Philly, and there was no competition, and then handed his son. Like, here you go, kid. Like, it's like this guy thinks he hit a home run and doesn't realize he started leading off a third. You know what I mean? Like he crossed home plate on a sacrifice bunt. That's like it was easy for him to come in, you know? And this guy, and so
real.
it's tough. Like it's hard, and you got to try to compete with that.
Yeah, man.
Because shit's set up for people to succeed.
If you succeed, you make some enemies. That's how it works.
Yeah, but you can't.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah.
That's how it always
Are you
works.
still doing comedy? Like, are you doing anything like that?
Every now and then. I was not.
I used to
was
study
not a good
comedy. Like
comic.
I used to really study the shit out of comedy. Who's your favorite comedian?
I really like Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch
I think he's
Hedberg.
hilarious.
I don't know.
I don't even know that.
He died of
That's
heroin
Kevin,
overdose.
right?
Yeah, he's awesome. He's check him. He's very funny.
Yeah.
Very dry humor, but it's like
I like the dry humor
stupid shit. Like
Stupid shit. That's
he had
the
a joke
funniest
like
sometimes.
he was at the mall and there's a sign on the escalator that said temporarily out of order, like sorry for the inconvenience, and it should have just said temporarily stairs. It was just jokes like that. But his delivery was just so good. So I like him a lot. I think Chris Rock is brilliant.
You know who I like a lot?
Seinfeld.
A lot?
Who you like?
I think
George
I'm
Carlin.
gonna say something.
You know
My-
George Carlin?
I think-
George Carlin's brilliant. Yeah, yeah,
George
sure,
Carlin
yeah.
is a fucking
My
genius.
favorite is Bill Burr because he's a maniac.
Oh, yeah.
If I had to pick,
I like
Bill
him.
Burr's a maniac.
Oh, yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
He is a maniac.
And I'll be honest, the hardest I've ever laughed was at Louis C.K.'s show. And I know
Louis
that
C.K.,
there's
he was great, and now he's
I feel weird saying.
I'm just
he's
being
a-
honest.
Yeah.
I've never giggled harder in my life.
Yeah.
'Cause there's a difference, right? You can laugh, but it's giggling. Giggling's like
He-
you're a little kid, and you're like, in
not
this
only is
weird
he
thing,
funny, but
everything he says,
he was
starts cracking.
transcendent in terms of the comedy.
Yeah.
He started doing shit that no other comedian was doing.
Yeah.
Then he started, instead of like having Ticketmaster book the Garden and sell
it
his
was his
tickets,
shit.
he fucking booked the Garden. So it was him, but he's putting his money on the line, knowing he can make more on the back end, right?
The email list and everything.
And he
he
made his
wouldn't
own
send it out
show.
often.
And he made his own show
He made his
out
own
of it.
show. He took care of all. Like, I mean, he knew he was like, he's
And he likes to jack
He's
off.
my favorite,
I'm
and he
just
likes to
saying,
jack up.
and he
My
likes to
cousin
jack
saw
off.
him recently.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Can we all sit here, fellas?
Yeah.
And be honest, you don't.
He had my cousin saw him recently, and his opening line was so. Yeah, his opening line was so. If you're thinking about asking a girl if you could take your dick out and masturbate, don't. That was his opening line.
After all this shit.
Yeah, but he's my favorite comedian for the same reason that LeBron James is now my favorite basketball player. I didn't like him at all because of the decision, and I'm like, oh, that's it, right? But there was an interview about him. He talked about meeting with an executive from Reebok. And he's like 18 years old, grew up in Akron, right? And he's sitting down at this conference table, like the longest conference table he's ever seen. And the rep from Reebok slides him across the table a check for $10 million. And he's like, he picks up the check and he looks at it, and his
Bro. Yeah, let's slow this down real fast.
$10 million. He's a senior in high school.
Well, I want y'all to understand.
As of right now, you know what I would do for $100,000?
I heard what you guys would do
That's
for.
a lot.
$100.
I heard what you guys were willing to do for a Klondike bar. So I can't imagine.
I would do anything for a Klondike bar right now. $100 million. I'm sitting right there in front of everybody on myself. Fuck it.
So he slides across the table. He slides across the table this check for $10 million.
God
And LeBron said his first thought was,
It's full.
if this guy is willing to give me $10 million, maybe Nike will give me 15. Or maybe it's not the money up front. Maybe it's the points on the back end.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. He had the foresight to think of that as a kid who grew up with nothing. And he said, one of the best lines I ever heard was, he said, so I slid the check back across the table, and then I went back to homeroom. Like that's
That's some gangster
Right?
shit right there.
That's crazy. And now look what he's doing. Like he's doing things. Like,
Ronald snap.
Charles, like
Ronald charged up. What? What's going on?
Get the fuck out of here.
he always had like remember Charles Barkley.
That's crazy.
I
Think
grew up
about
loving
that. Like, where were
Barkley.
you just at, bro? I just slid back a 10 million check. Ain't about shit though.
Yeah.
What we learning though? Ain't about shit. What? Why would you do that shit?
I always loved Barkley
what
because
LeBron
he would
said.
like his big thing was like I'm not a role model. But he did a ton of shit that no one knew about it because he would do it to do it. And now you got, I think this new crop of athletes is what's going to change things if things are going to change because they are becoming role models. They are becoming
Yeah.
people who are like
People that are
giving back to the
people that
community
have
and
discipline. Because I feel like to be an athlete is to be disciplined, and I feel like in any craft,
I think
you have to be.
And it's so successful. It's so successful.
Number one, that school pays for I think 100% of your college.
Yep.
LeBron's school. He built the school. He built a fucking school.
Yeah, and it's so successful. The one thing the NBA did that was brilliant because they were getting a bad rap, and the majority of the fan base during the Bird Magic era was white and corporate America, that kind, and so they were trying to create this image. And the one thing I think they did that was brilliant was when rookie players came in, they had to go through 2 weeks of seminars, how to invest your money, how to save your money, and they started teaching them things that they weren't learning, like you said, in high school.
Not at
and
all.
I think that started changing the culture a bit. So you still had I still have that hip hop culture in the NBA,
but now it's going
you've also
somewhere.
got right. But you're all right, how can we drive forward?
Exactly.
How do we
I think
drive
that's
forward?
crazy that they wait till that kid can offer the world something to teach them shit like that. They gotta become a basketball
No one would care about him
player
if he didn't know how to bounce a basketball.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Right.
They need to
But
teach
that's
stuff
the thing,
like
you
that in
need-
school.
But no, that's
Right.
like my mom used to say. That's too much right.
Right.
That's real shit though. Shit ain't. I don't know. A lot of times
It's too nice. But I feel like
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
the
people
thing
get
when you grow,
fucked up, though.
right,
Is
that's-
that they don't trust when someone is being nice. And I feel like that's the start of actually, because I feel like what successful people are is being able to outsource to other people, to touch other, not touch like that, but I'm just saying, to touch in a sense that it's
You're trying to touch me or something?
all right, relax, Ron. Come on, man. I'm not trying to touch you right now.
touching me,
No, right now. No, it's fine. No, but it's the fact to be in the community and actually understanding this is what we need.
Right.
This is what we need to do. This is what we should learn, and this is what we should actually try to
Right.
do. Schooling,
Right.
getting those honestly, a degree nowadays is that's how you get a good job. That's how
Yeah.
you get these things out of here.
My mom used to say you ain't gonna learn shit to somebody, because you know how you hear shit from your parents. It's just oh, you just talking shit. Yeah. But if I hear somebody else, if my mom tell me everything LeBron telling me, but I'm gonna listen to LeBron more because my mom,
Sure.
she just saying all that shit. All right, mom. Whatever.
Right.
But
LeBron
LeBron said, I'm
did
like,
it,
oh
yeah.
shit. All right, you're right. All right, yeah. I guess
But
it
you're
comes,
right, though. The
when it
athletes,
comes
I
from
feel
a
like-
different source,
But
it
learning,
kinda,
but Barkley was right. When Barkley used to say all the time, I'm not a role model. That's right, because your role model can't be something that only one out of every 100,000 people
Interesting.
It's almost something
gonna
more-
reach, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, that it's not the most realistic thing,
Yeah.
and you can have a kid who puts everything into it,
And think
and then
it
hits
right down.
18, and it's just
Yeah.
he just didn't have that God-given
almost set up for
ability or
failure.
whatever,
Yeah.
And then now what, right? So, learning, other things, that was the thing that would drive me nuts. We in the school I taught at, our career day,
Yeah.
they brought in a mom who was a cashier at ShopRite, which, not knocking her, the woman worked hard, right? But that's your backup plan. That's not what you want your students aspiring to, right? That's your backup plan,
Right, right,
you know.
right,
And it was that, or it was something that was wait, and teaching kids all right, you want to be a rap star. Okay, well, maybe go about it, find out about production, find out about editing, find out what, you know what I mean? There's these other avenues, learn these avenues.
Learn
Yeah.
everything.
Because everybody wants to be a rap star.
But
Everyone
also,
wants to be an NBA
but
star.
also
Everyone
when
wants-
you're in these low income neighborhoods, what you have there's their good
I
way
think it's
and
good
there's
you
the
and I,
bad
as
way.
white men, being able to figure this out.
Yeah.
What's
I'm just saying, no.
No.
I'm just-
Wait a second. You
No,
don't
but real
talk
shit.
about What you don't sound.
No. What I'm saying is I just feel like it's all you have is it's the good way and the bad way, right? So if you work a 9 to 5, right, in a neighborhood, it's usually a corporation. It's usually something that's it's not going to pay you right. So it's either you can be good or you can be bad. You know what I'm saying? So it's you could either be on a side that's making more money or on a side that's not. And if you're a smart person actually growing up in an environment like that, you would take the smarter way out. So I don't starve, so my family could eat, so we can do these things, so I could provide, you know?
Yeah, it's honestly. Wait, which way you saying though? I think it's smart. All right, this might sound really fucking crazy, but if you're smart and you're in a position that, yo, my family's hungry, I need money right now. It's smarter to do the thing that's gonna get you fast bread.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Is it smarter though?
That's why I said you gotta do what you gotta do.
No. But in a
Smarter,
sense, no, it's not. But what I'm saying
Well,
is,
it's smarter in the fact that,
imagine.
adapting for adapting.
Yeah, for survival, it's smart. But
Because I feel
legally-
like we don't provide a system I think it starts in high school, man. I think if you talk to these kids about how to get a job in high school, middle school is
no, not how to get a job. See, that's the problem. We teach people how to get. I don't want to work for someone. When I go to work every day, sometimes I just feel like I'm making this motherfucker richer every day. I'm doing all the growth.
like an entrepreneur
Right.
kind of thing.
You need
You
to
want to
teach
start
these
your own
So
thing.
different
what
things how
are
to
you
create.
referring to? That short
I was saying more so all right. I think it goes all the way back to like not seeing success. All right, do you feel like since you start working for a smaller company, you know your boss?
I know my boss.
Owner of this.
Yeah, good.
And it's been I had my past 2 jobs. I've known the owner. I feel like I never was thinking like that.
Yeah,
I didn't think like that until I saw what success was.
Sure.
And I saw
no examples. 100%.
First, it goes back to people not being able to like. These kids don't see what success is. So their parents are like, go to school and get.
But they don't get it. They don't get it.
You don't see that because my mom doesn't. It didn't work out for her. So why would I listen to her? But it's like it is kind of for adapting. It's smarter to do like. That's like the ladder when it comes to adapt. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I just think so you're saying that's the smart. It's the way out there.
No, well, not necessarily the way out. What he's saying is like,
what's the
if you're saying
the longevity of that?
The difference between what he's saying is like,
how many years you got before you're dead or in jail?
That is true. You said selling drugs, right?
I'm not promoting.
Right. I'm just
well, no. What he's saying is like, right now.
That's how this is.
No. Right now at this moment.
That's how it's built.
If I know the only way I'm gonna eat dinner right now is if I sell this little bit of whatever that I got right now.
It's built like that. It's built.
You know what I'm saying? Not as like I'm gonna be doing this shit every day.
Because the mindset is get in, get out. But a lot of people
get stuck.
Get stuck.
But I think there's also the mindset of the only way you're gonna is if you do this.
Exactly.
And there's no mindset of
that is.
They don't push the mindset of like that's not the only way.
Right. Yeah.
You can probably
need to see it.
But that's the thing.
You're 100% right. You need to see it. You're 100%.
The people that they do see with money pulling up in Mercedes Benz and shit is the people.
I think as a responsibility for people to give back when you are successful in any way is to go to like your roots. And talk to them and be like, I was from here. I was sitting right there. I was doing that.
Like, need an example.
Just anything. Like, look, now everything's good because I dedicated myself. I was disciplined and I was able to provide for my family and for myself.
Yeah.
And now we're here.
It's like that across the board. Like, so me, like I had like insane anger management issues, and that something like from what as a little kid, and I didn't really have an example of. Here's how you control that. Here's how you handle it. Until I met my wife, and then I had that example. Right. It's like that with everything. You need to be able to see it. Yeah. When I taught, we had
and not even just on like because everything's on a fucking screen nowadays.
Right.
Seeing it right in person makes
a personal connection with somebody.
A personal, real connection. Not
shout out to the beauties that like the beast.
So that attests to what you were saying.
I got attached to this family that I taught. They like I said they were 44th in Haverford.
Right.
And boarded up windows, my wife and I once a month we would go pick them up. Mm-hmm. The first time we walked into their house, the only furniture on their main floor was a kid's picnic table. That was it.
Damn.
Right? Shit. They had 7 people living in one bedroom because their boiler broke. They had no heat, and so that was where the electric heater was. Think how dangerous that is. Like 3 to 4 little kids around an electric heater, right?
Dude,
so
that's not good at all.
Once a month we would take these kids. I'd take them for pizza. I'd take them to like my wife's nephew's football game or something, whatever. The first time that we crossed the Spring Garden Bridge and they saw the Schuylkill River and the Art Museum, they were like, what's this? They grew up 15 blocks away from it and never saw it.
How old are these kids again?
The youngest was 6, but the sister was 14, right? And probably never would have seen it until she got into adulthood and maybe went and got a job in Center City or something like that. Like her dad cooked in Center City.
It's wild.
But 15 blocks away. So all you ever see is boarded up windows, and that's it. Like
you know what's crazy?
That's all you see.
My uncle, we were talking about this not so long ago. Like some of my family members, like I'm not gonna like some of my family members like never seen. They live in Uptown, like Philadelphia, like kind of like West Oakland area. Never left the fucking like 10-block radius, bro.
It's
like
insane.
Never, and they're like.
But then, like I said, but if you give
it's almost
a kid
like
that,
you're so comfortable there. It's like you don't.
Right.
Why?
But you give a kid like that an opportunity.
I like this, and that's the thing. Like if you don't know, okay, you like this, but if you don't know what's out here, it's just like you don't know if you don't like this.
You don't know that there's so much in the world to discover. This is not it.
It's almost like
some people think in this small radius, like this is what the most important thing is. But then when you start branching out, you're like, there's a whole world for me to discover.
Same thing with like LeBron's school. So Bill Gates started a school here in Philly. They call it the School of the Future.
Magnus. It's like a magnet school, right?
I'm not. It is a charter, but it's.
Wait, I never knew that. When was this?
It's I think 2000 when I started. Right, it's right by the Philadelphia Zoo.
Real?
Yeah. So
I'm from here. Don't even know that shit.
Right by the Philadelphia Zoo, on the road up to like where the Police House Museum is.
Shit.
I think it started in 2000.
Damn.
So
my church was in there.
They you have to test in. No, I'm sorry. It's a lottery to get into the school. Most of these charter schools that perform real high, you got to test into it. So they're cherry picking their kids, right?
Yeah.
This is a lottery system, so there's no cherry picking. Your family has to be under a certain amount of income in order for you to qualify for that lottery.
Oh, so it's a low income school.
Low income school. Yeah,
Oh,
it's in the
that
middle.
is
It's in the
fucking
middle
cool.
of West Philly, right? The lowest of low incomes.
Okay.
Philadelphia, amongst African American males, we have a 75% dropout rate in the inner city. 3 out of 4 don't graduate high school.
Right.
Since 2000, this school. So here's what he does: if you graduate with a B or B plus or better average, he pays your college education in full.
Oh,
If you start to go to college and don't finish, then you owe him 4 years at a branch of the military of your choice. In a city with a 75% dropout rate amongst African American males, since 2000, 100% graduation rate. 100% graduation rate. What's the difference? Opportunity. They know they have an opportunity.
That's all it is.
Because we bring in
It's
Made in
an
America, or we bring in a Super Bowl back, or bring in real athletes, we're bringing attention. I feel
And
like
if
in
you
a
think
weird
about
way, what has saved the city? Media. Isn't that weird how that kind of plays out, right?
I think they ruined
Well,
the city. I think,
no,
yeah.
I mean,
It's
but
different
Elab-
than news.
elaborate
It's
on
like
that.
Person, but
it's like a double-edged sword kind of, because like the news kind of fucks it up.
I mean, all right.
So
So the
I
news,
haven't watched the
all
news
right.
in
I get the
years.
news to an extent of saying that it's a dangerous city, but
Think
I'm
about-
saying the amount of like
Right.
the sports, honestly, in a weird way, has brought attention. The other things that have brought attention.
But think about it. Remember the media coverage from the Super Bowl? They
Yeah,
made it seem like it was Armageddon here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it was on. Like this city's gonna burn down. They took the same
But we didn't,
4
though.
stupid fucking clips.
And kept replaying them.
And they played them on a loop. You had the rich white kids from the suburbs jumping on the awning outside the Ritz Carlton and breaking the awning. You had the other rich white kids flipping over from not even from Philly, from the suburbs,
Sure.
flipping over the car. You had the food fight at the gas station, and you had some jackass
bull that was eating
ate
horse shit.
horse shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all right.
right. They took those 4 clips and they put them on repeat over and over and over
That
from
was a
different
goodie.
angles, and
Shout
it made
out
it
to that
seem
I
like
ain't
a
gonna lie. Me and Aaron went down to like Temple
we all
area
did,
as soon
yeah.
as they won and shit.
Yeah.
Like no, I mean like as soon as they won, we was like, yo, let's out. We was out. It was, and
it was
people
a
was hanging
fucking-
from fucking stop signs and red lights and shit. I'm like, what the fuck?
But it was
But here's the
peaceful,
thing,
right?
though.
People were having fun. Like it was
people
like.
were having.
But
a
we
fucking
know
blast.
that. But we
You know
know
what?
that.
I'm
Just
not gonna
because I
lie.
feel like a
Right.
few media
Meanwhile,
sources said that.
For that moment,
Boston had
Everybody knows.
legit riots when they lost. Legit
yeah.
riots, way worse than it was
Oh,
in
yeah.
Philly.
Yeah.
You didn't hear a fucking word about it.
Ah,
Not a word
interesting.
about it.
Interesting.
It was because
But-
we, yeah.
I feel like,
know-
but
no, no, no,
what
it's
media
what?
sources though? What
Wait, he was about
media
to say something.
sources? You get what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
On
You're
social
saying-
media, Philly looked like a fucking party. You know what I'm
Yo.
saying? Everyone was like, "This
Yeah,
is
Philly
the spot."
people- yeah, yeah,
You know what
right,
I'm saying?
sure.
So
But then
fun.
you get to the CNN and the MSNBC and all that bullshit that no one watches anymore.
Don't believe the news.
And then everyone's like, "It's these fucking kids that are fucking burning down the city and all that
No.
other nonsense."
Yo, I'm be
I feel like it's
honest.
very perspective. That's the thing. But I feel like because of the sports and because people respect athletes, like you kind of brought up,
Yeah.
is that I feel like brought a shitload of attention to the city and made value to the city.
Not even
when it was in
attention.
a hole. When people were the fucking. What was it? The murder rate, the highest in the nation and shit. Like, not
Something
even
like
that far back, you know?
For that
what
one
you're
moment, Philadelphia, I felt like everybody was literally happy in that city.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, though.
Well,
but
I know what you're saying. You're saying
It's-
it's,
this is
it's not the
important.
media. I know what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. But it's like the people. It's not just the media. It's like the people in the media that like the rappers that come from Philly. Like Meek is doing a lot of things, but it's him.
Sure.
It's not the media. Before the media was trashing him. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody
And now
was
they're
trashing him.
building
But the media's
him up and showing
nonsense.
him, but it's not the media. It's
Right.
the people.
do you
that
trust the media, honestly? I feel
I
like
don't.
everybody in here
I
doesn't
don't.
really.
But I'm saying like.
So then,
it's
like,
the people
why do
that's
we
being-
provide, like, that is the main source of what things are? It's crazy.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
saying it's the
I
people
don't
that's
know.
like the media is covering. That is their responsibility to come back to their city and like build it.
Well,
But
it's
wait.
interesting. So you had journalism, right? So you had
Yeah.
newspapers, which
This
is like,
is the new
it's a dying
journalism.
breed.
This is
and
the
now
new
it's
journalism.
Facebook.
Yeah.
And so it used to be, you had a beat reporter who's on the ground, interviewing people, taking their time, writing, how good of a story can we write? Now it's just how quick can you get the headline out? Doesn't matter if it's true or
Clickbait.
not.
You gotta catch
Clickbait.
people's second,
Clickbait.
catch people's attention in a
Clickbait.
nanosecond.
Right.
Like nano fucking second. You only got a fucking second to catch your attention.
Like with
Right.
If
Louis
you don't,
C.K.,
they're
to
gonna
be
keep
honest.
scrolling. That's all you do is scroll.
Like somebody with Louis C.K.
Say it
Where you
again?
say that, like with somebody like Louis C.K. I know people that, like, walked up to me because I was always, like, avidly, I liked Louis C.K. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And then, like, everyone was like, did you hear what happened? And I'm like, what? And, like, he did this, and that. And then you start kind of looking into it, and it's
It's
like,
a game of telephone.
yeah, it's like, this is kind of, I don't know, like, you acted like he, like, fucking like raped all these people or something.
I don't even
or
know what
some,
he
like
did.
Harvey Weinstein shit
Tell him what he
because he
did.
was mixed up in this.
What
He
did
got
do?
caught. He got caught in a perfect storm.
Yeah,
of, like,
exactly.
the height of the Me Too movement, the height of like it was just like it was the
He
worst
was-
possible time in
exactly,
history.
and that's the thing. But I mean, what I think it is like, I mean, he was caught up with some stuff. Like he just wanted to fucking, you know.
What he did,
He would
what he did was weird. It was,
Yeah, it was
weird,
weird. It was
but-
weird.
Shit.
Somebody
But
tell
it's
me what he
kinky.
did.
We-
What he
Yeah.
did?
Whatever.
But there's a clear
I'm just
thing.
being honest.
What did he do?
Crimes. Well,
He liked to jack off in front of
He was
ladies.
jacking
Right.
off in front of girls.
Oh, I heard about that. I didn't know.
But-
But I'm
the
just
thing
saying,
is,
like, I don't
crimes-
know, man. It's just like,
But it was like it wasn't like they weren't
was
allowed to
consented.
say no.
Yeah, it was a
I-
consent.
And I,
He
like,
said
I'm
it's
afraid to
just
say
okay.
because I'm gonna like
I don't know.
you know. But
No,
like
but
yeah,
sometimes
you
it's true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like Aziz Ansari, that thing. Like
Yeah,
that was a
yeah.
bad date.
Yeah.
That was a bad, like, oh, what, you know, it was, I don't
just
know. It's
took a
bizarre.
shot.
You get the, it's tough. It's like, I, you know, I can't, there's a lot of things like you can't
Touch.
comment on, right? Because you're like, oh, people are gonna
So it's
murder
fucking
you.
Philly. We shouldn't touch.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yo,
ready,
bro,
wait,
yo.
wait. All right, so we didn't even touch in all the shit.
Yeah, we
This
got
motherfucker
way
taught
up in
me.
it. Sorry.
Oh yeah,
In
keep going.
fucking
We
all
got
these things.
all
All right,
the
so-
time in the world.
All right, so I just want to. I mean, we have a little bit of time. I know your favorites because I listened to every single thing that you did on the nice ride that we took. But you could first tell me about somebody named Cornbread.
Cornbread is, it's a great story. So,
Yeah.
I already have a visual
Alright,
of how this guy looks. I'm not gonna lie.
so he's like he's kind of he's the original street graffiti artist.
Oh, okay, that's not what I was
out of
picturing.
Philly. And so he looks sort of like, he kind of looks like
Hold on, let me see.
Wilt Chamberlain almost, right?
Oh, no, I
so
wasn't
same
thinking-
age, grew up in the same neighborhood.
Big boy.
So
Long-
yeah, tall,
long
pretty tall
guy,
guy, tall,
yeah.
slender guy. So he
picturing
gets himself in a
Kodak
bit of
Black.
trouble, and they send him to a juvenile detention center. And every day at lunch, he would ask the cook for cornbread, and they keep telling him no, and he keeps asking for it. And so the cook starts to call him Cornbread, and then it becomes his nickname. So he starts to write it on the walls of the detention center. They just call him Cornbread.
They never got it.
So he never got his. I don't think he ever got his cornbread.
That's
yeah.
fucked up, dude.
Yeah.
Go get
that
some
is- that
cornbread,
is-
yo. You want
yeah.
some cornbread, yo?
Working.
Come over here.
As-
We'll get you some
well,
cornbread.
Chris let me try it again. As Chris Rock would say, ain't nothing wrong with that. I remember
Ain't
he had a
nothing wrong with that.
ain't nothing wrong with that. So he would write cornbread on the walls of the detention center, and it made him popular. And so when he gets out, he's like, if it made it popular on the inside, maybe it'll make me popular on the outside. So he goes around Philly. He's writing cornbread in the buildings. A reporter sees it, writes an article. The headline: Who is Cornbread? Soon after, Dow's friend Cornelius is shot and killed in West Philly.
What do you got to say, Aaron?
Yo, my pop grew up in North Philly, down Nicetown, and he knew Cornbread.
Is that right?
Always talked about him.
Oh shit!
That's-
you know
Shit!
Cornbread?
We got a fucking whole kind of story going on now.
Yo, he would literally be riding like anywhere.
Wherever he could
He
tag.
wouldn't even guess where he could ride.
Just in, yeah. He would like repel off of shit to get his
Wait,
name.
quick
in
question.
crazy
Why did
places.
they? Why were they drawn to what his? Why did they ask where's this guy Cornbread? What drew them to that?
Because it was everywhere, popping up everywhere.
Oh, so they're just like,
Oh,
yeah,
so
this
it's like,
has
who
to be
is
something.
Cornbread?
yeah, so it was
Alright.
just it was like the original Banksy, right?
Almost
Shit
like we
just popping
gotta
up
find
everywhere.
out
Like,
who this
where
guy
is
is.
this shit?
Yeah.
So he'd be right
Almost like
cornbread
that
everywhere.
guy. Wait, anybody ever saw that joint where it's like, who is Steven?
Yeah,
Steven said, who the fuck is that?
Yeah,
Who's
that was
Steven Singer?
brilliant marketing.
Who is that?
He's a jeweler.
He's a what?
Brilliant marketing. He's a
It's
jeweler.
from a radio station that hates this jeweler guy, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that
He
what
hates
it
because
is?
his prices are so low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shit
I was
fucked
so
me up
annoyed
for
when
so
I found
long.
out who
It's like
actually
a
was.
Jersey thing, isn't
I'm
it?
like, I
From
felt-
Jersey
yeah,
or something?
I want to hear about cornbread.
I
Yeah,
felt
what's
for
up
his
with
head.
cornbread?
Please, get
So he
cornbread.
would write cornbread with a crown on top everywhere he could. So the reporter writes the article, who is Cornbread? Soon after, his friend Cornelius is shot and killed in West Philly. Crowd gathers. They start yelling, Corn is dead. Corn is dead. Gets his way back to the reporter. He thinks it's Daryl. It's not. He writes another article. The headline, Cornbread is dead, and he's not. So to prove he's not, he starts writing, the legend of Cornbread lives everywhere. So he has his friends call in a fake burglary to a high-rise in Philly. He waits for like the cops to show up. As soon as they enter the building, he spray paints like 7 or 8 Philly cop cars. Legend of Cornbread lives. He breaks into the Philadelphia. He breaks into the Philadelphia airport. The Jackson 5 is here recording at the time. On the
Wait, he
side,
breaks into where? Say it
the
again?
airport.
Okay,
Airport,
alright,
Philly
alright.
Airport, yeah.
On the side of the Jackson 5's jet. Legend of Cornbread lives.
He's a fucking legend, yo.
Breaks into a
He's a fucking
zoo.
legend.
At the time, we had real elephants, not just fake elephants.
Yeah.
On the side of a real elephant, spray paints Legend of Cornbread lives. He's exiting the zoo, gets arrested for trespassing. Reported another story about it.
Trespassing.
Story
That's what he
goes,
gets arrested for.
story goes national. Kids from New York read about it, start to mimic the behavior. It's considered to be the birth of art style graffiti. So before that, graffiti was all gang related, and now you have art graffiti. And then in the early 80s, this one guy from Philly gets tired of it. So wherever he sees it, he goes around and paints over the city and paints over it in white. You're just cleaning the canvas. Kids come back the next day, they write their names again. And so Jane Golden starts the mural arts program. So as a result of the program, you get caught doing graffiti. Your choices are 1, go to jail, 2, join the program.
Or do more murals.
Right.
Yeah.
So most kids take
Or
choice
do,
2. They
yeah.
get paired up with a mentor. They go around the city painting murals. As a result, we've had over like 3,500 murals since the 80s. Cornbread is actually a mentor in the program to this day. Before, and I don't tell this on the tour because it's a little, but before Jane Golden started the mural arts program, Cornbread started the anti-graffiti network. So he walked into the mayor's office and he's like, hey, I have this idea to put up artwork with kids, work with school kids and put up artwork so that they don't tag up things. And the mayor's like, well, who are you? And he's like, I'm Cornbread. And he's like, you're hired. So he starts the anti-graffiti network, but it was the 80s. And so the story I've heard, and this is not confirmed one way or the other, Jane Golden was a part of the anti-graffiti network. The story I'd heard was it's the 80s, and they were partying a little bit too hard. And so they had to disband. And Jane Golden was the only person who maybe literally and figuratively kept their nose clean. And so
it's a time.
Jane Golden's the one that starts the mural arts program.
Oh, yeah,
So Cornbread starts the anti-graffiti network, but they got to disband because they just got caught partying a
Sure.
little too hard.
Yeah.
And then they start the mural arts program.
Damn. That is a cool ass story.
See, and
Where's this guy Cornbread now?
shit.
Where's he doing now?
He still lives. So I watched him.
This dude is a fucking legend.
There's
How
a
did he do that shit?
skateboarder from
the
Baltimore
But
who did a.
sorry.
Yeah,
But
please.
Yeah, but I'm saying like we want to talk about legends of Philadelphia, right? This man can tell you a million stories about the man Ben Franklin that keeps at 100 every fucking
Ben
single
is
time.
my guy. Ben is my guy.
The Ben do some gangster shit. In this
No,
time?
I'm just saying that might be what the greatest.
He's.
I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Greatest
that
what?
touches that.
Yeah.
The greatest
Phil-
what?
Philadelphian person that ever lived here ever.
Why don't they have any like legit like Hollywood movie about Ben Franklin?
That's a good question.
Wait,
It
so
should
give
be.
me-
do it.
So I heard a
Let's
story.
go,
They
let's
said
Give me a
We're gonna
reason
cut
why.
this out.
supposedly he was gonna be a character in Hamilton, but he stole the stage every time he was on it. So they couldn't they couldn't bring his character. He was. I mean, stories about him. He would walk around in his house with the windows open in the nude. You just like letting it hang out. The guy was.
Let my balls
He
hang.
would let when he's over in
Balls out,
France.
dude.
Let my balls hang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
So
Let it hang out.
he's a widow
Despair.
when he's over in France, but he would like these young women would let him like sit in the bathroom while they would take a bath, and he would like play chess and watch them bathe while he was playing chess. Just kind of like looking at them while he was playing chess with himself and probably playing with himself too. I'm assuming that wasn't written about. I didn't read that
But
chapter.
that's
I'm
probably how it played.
I'm
out,
taking
to
a
be
guess.
honest, yeah.
But he
Ben
was
Banklin.
Yeah, Ben
if
Banklin
more
is shit.
wealthy people were like him, our country would be in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
So because he didn't come from wealth, so he despised aristocracy. He felt that the wealthy should pay more than their share, not less than their share.
Yes.
No,
That's what people get
conversely,
twisted,
he didn't believe in welfare. He thought that welfare would create dependencies. He revered the Chinese. He said that the Chinese culture had it right because they held up their ancestors, what their ancestors had achieved. And he said in the colonies were playing this dangerous game of rewarding the children of those that achieved before they've accomplished anything. But he would give money back in different ways. So he leaves $200,000 to Philly and $200,000 to Boston with explicit instructions that 70% be lent out to low or middle income entrepreneurs. And then he's like, as that loan is getting paid back after 100 years, do it again, lend out another 70%. And he predicted after 200 years, it would be about $5 million. Don't quote me the numbers, but in Philly, I think it's like 4.2. Boston doesn't handle the funds as well. I mean, Boston handles the funds better. It's about 4.8. So still Ben Franklin money in the cities doing good for low and middle income entrepreneurs. So he
Is that
knew-
not like? I mean,
he
we talk
wanted
about this all the
America to
time.
be a hardworking middle class nation.
Yes.
For a lot of our founding fathers, the revolution was a land grab. They saw an opportunity to get wealthier, to grab land, and yeah, like it wasn't like independence wasn't a part of it. It was, but it was also like, how can we capitalize on this?
Right.
Yeah.
Franklin really wanted to see people succeed.
Right.
He was not like a huge proponent of organized religion. He liked it for like the rules and the structures and the guidelines that it offered, but he thought it was more important to like practicality was more important than spirituality.
Liking it.
And-
Practicality. Wait,
So practicality meaning that you were provided for, that you were taken care of, that you can
So he-
provide for your family, and
You know how like everybody, like, you know, any athlete today, right? Like first I want to give thanks to God through whom all things are possible, right?
Sure.
Ben would say, no, I don't want. I'm not. First, I'm going to thank myself because God might have.
Right. I ain't gonna lie. I fuck
Right.
with that shit, yo.
Is it like God gave me these talents, but I had to cultivate them. I had to work at them. I had to improve them.
I
So he would thank God for life,
Facts.
but like thank myself for what I've achieved because
Hell
I had to
yeah.
work for it. You know, and that's the thing too, right?
There's a self kind of like
Right.
love for that, which I think makes you grow as a person in general. Because like I think a lot of people are told their whole life you have to be almost like selfless,
Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like at the same time, if you're selfless, then you are miserable.
Yeah.
And then
that guy had a
and then
huge
in-
ego and talked
yeah.
about his ego. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got an ego.
I
Yeah.
fuck
But I'm
with
fucking
Snoop
Ben
in the
Franklin.
interview.
Yeah,
Like, I want to thank
I'm
myself.
fucking Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to be like, yo, like you're in the,
Kanye shit.
you want some
That's the
bagels?
Kanye shit.
You're like hungry as shit. You're like you left your wallet, and someone's like, man, like you know you forgot your wallet. You're like, I'm fucking Ben Franklin, yo. Like, do you understand what I'm doing
Ben
right now?
Franklin.
Give me my fucking bagel right now.
I remember reading this interview with Ray Allen, right? Probably one of the, if not the
Jesus shows.
greatest shooter of all time, right? And he said he always hated when people talked about his God-given talent. He's like, because to me, it overshadows the hours and hours and hours I sat in a gym by myself working on my jump shot. He was a terrible shooter in high school and not a really good shooter in college until towards the end. He made himself a great shooter because he would be
Ben
there
Simmons,
2 hours before
you
and
got
2
a
hours
chance.
afterwards just shooting jump shots. So he's like, I hate when people talk about my God-given ability, my God-given talent, because like I worked for hours and hours and hours and hours,
That
right?
is true. So he's saying that's not a God-given talent, or is he saying?
I mean,
it's a God-given
it
talent?
would. So he had to cultivate
but
it.
He's saying that like, all right.
'Cause
So
I'm gonna
I
be
saw
honest,
this.
I feel like
I
a
saw
lot of times we don't give
Sure.
enough credit to ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw this quote by Muhammad Ali.
That goes
right?
back to the real quick.
Sorry.
I'm gonna actually ask y'all this question live, yo, and we're gonna see what y'all think. What do you think the word humble means? Give me your definition of humble.
Humble. All right.
Yeah.
Let me think. Humble is
This is about to fuck you up too. I'm just telling you.
it's probably like a contradicting kind of thing, right? It's probably like I am like humble is I know what I've done, but I don't boast about it or something. You know?
Keenan, what do you think?
Humble. I mean, we talk about this a lot, but like, I don't know. What I like used to think humble meant and shit. I thought it meant like just being like, like modest and being like
Modest. Okay.
I would go with
You
modest.
would go
too.
modest too,
Yeah.
right? All right, listen to this shit. These are synonyms for the word humble.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
All right.
Let's see. Submissive,
Submissive.
self-officiating,
Okay.
unassertive. Let's keep going. Self-depreciating.
Hmm.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Wow.
Interesting.
Modest, which is what y'all said,
Okay.
right? But think about that.
There's a lot of
So-
negatives in
Not
that.
yet.
So we
That
think,
was very
no,
negative
I'm
on
being-
somebody who's
Those
being
are
humble.
synonyms
Right.
for the
Yeah.
word
What was
humble.
your big-
So wait. So real quick, just to prove that, it's like you hear a lot of people saying, I understand what we think humble means.
Sure.
I understand that we're not gonna walk around like a dickhead boasting about how we're good at this, good at that.
Okay.
But at the same time, give yourself some credit. You don't want to walk around unassertive. You don't want to walk around self-depreciating yourself. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
You need to learn. Like I feel like, and it's weird because a lot of people that are up here are telling people down here to like, yeah,
Appreciate
like, be
yourself.
Humble. No, be humble.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it's like, like I don't know. Like
So,
it seems kind of weird. To me.
Ben had this list originally of 12 virtues,
Right.
and he would track them in a journal. And every time he broke one, he put a little dot. And then his friend wrote him a letter, and he said, "You're missing one. Add a 13th, humility." And so Ben writes back to his friend, "For you, I shall do so. But between you and I, if I ever achieve humility, I'm going to congratulate myself on doing so."
That's what's up.
One of my favorite lines.
I feel like
That's crazy.
It's like finally I fucked up, so I could learn to not fuck up again.
But he said, but that's what told him he's not going to be perfect because he's never going to have humility.
right.
You
Yeah.
can't be perfect because
can't
if you
be
think you're
perfect.
perfect, you're not humble.
Exactly.
So you.
And it's like I feel like we do confuse humble with like being like an empathetic person. Like to have empathy, you could be empathetic and be like and not be like a drunk, like a fucking asshole. But it's just like, is that being humble?
Empathetic to what though? I'm saying like as if consider me Ray Allen right now. I'm the best shooter in the league. I'm not walking around with the chip on my y'all know I'm shooting better than me. Yeah, you know I'm the best shooter in the league. You know I'm the best shooter in the league. I understand that part. But if exactly, which is why that's what we were talking about before. Like we think we know what a lot of these words mean that we be using, but sometimes we just like throwing
Submiss
them
to it.
around, not really even. We think we know, we have an idea, but it's like once you look that shit up. Once I looked up humble, I was like, what the fuck?
That's like nothing what I thought it was.
Nothing
Gonna
like what I ever want to be. Why would I want to be self-depreciating? Why would I want to be unassertive and submissive? You know what I'm saying? It's just like you think you know what these things means, but when you look it up, it's
Right.
just like, oh, let me change my language a little bit. It got to be another word close to humble that we can use to describe what we think humble means. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or what we
Modest, I guess, right? That'd be
Modest,
modest the way to go.
But Tim, so
but Ben Franklin was a modest person, what you were saying.
He was not a modest person.
Oh,
no, he
Ben Banklin.
Get your shit,
Ben Banklin.
keep it 100 every fucking time. I don't give a fuck.
Ben drinking.
Ben drinking.
Oh yeah, I saw your
I
shirt.
saw my post. There you go.
Ben drinking.
So through all this, right? So I mean, has social media helped you out with like kind of reaching this? Because I feel like, I'll be honest, and what I really appreciated the time that we went on this, I had my boss. I mean, I'll probably call it anyways, but he told me that he was like, we're doing this trolley ride, and he said it's like kind of like a BYO thing. So I was like, all right, so I kind of pre-gamed for your thing.
Good for you.
And it was like 12 o'clock, but you know, no one else.
That's okay.
There's bagels. I like bagels.
There's bagels from Need.
And
Shout out
then
to Need.
And then we went to like the oldest fucking the brewery in Philadelphia. It was the City Tavern, right?
City Tavern. Yeah.
Silver Tavern.
The oldest,
So and I remember just thinking like when you're doing this, is this something that like do you feel like some kind of way like that you're really like telling these people something that is like really benefiting all kinds of life?
I think I honestly want people to walk away from my tour feeling good about things, feeling positive about the state of things, because we have so much thrown in our face about how bad things are and how negative and how we're in this downward spiral. Yep. So I want people to walk away feeling positive, which is be honest, the reason why I have someone else taking over the African American History Tour, because like that's tough to make those stories positive, but and also like and this is off tangent from what you're asking, but it kind of felt like it wasn't my place to tell those stories, right?
Of course,
but I try to keep my tour like rah rah, because the founding fathers,
and it's
like
fun. And
right,
that's the
and
thing,
even
like
Ben, like he was, the guy's a terrible father. He's a terrible husband. He was like all the founding fathers are flawed to different degrees. Some of them to really, really terrible degrees.
Sure,
but they also all did astounding things, right? Mm-hmm. And so you got to, in my opinion, you got to talk about both sides. Yeah. On my tour, I don't, because that's not why people are taking my tour. But yeah, I definitely I want people to walk away feeling good about things, and
just to chime in, it's like, imagine this, right? We're fucked up a little bit, right? And we got a few beers left.
Shout out
I'm saying,
Prop.
Sure. But I'm just saying, like,
shout out Single Prop.
No, but I'm just saying, it's like, what I like about what this whole thing has been too is like Tim has been very accepting of us through this process, right? And I feel like you have these tour guys that are like, there's this weird like kind of boundary between the person and you, right? Yeah, it's like this is and what you provide is like you can drink. You can hang out. I'll take you to a nice place. I'll tell you a fun story.
Right.
I'll make it funny. And I feel like that is like something that's so important, because I feel like you said, like you're a retired teacher. I don't think so. I think you're a teacher now. I think you're more of a teacher now than you were, because
I would agree
you're
with
teaching
that.
adults. And to be honest, that's probably the hardest thing to do. It's like it's like, an old dog learning new tricks, And it's like, but I resonate with that because I felt all this and I feel all this.
I appreciate that, yeah.
And that's why, like, I feel like that's why we really wanted you to come on here, is because, like, all these stories you've told, it's like that's from your heart.
One more story though.
Part of like what we're doing. So we just incorporated. We're about to launch a second company called Revolutionary Tours.
Okay.
And so a lot of our BYOB thing is going to slide over to that. And
is that also going to be a Philly?
Founding Footsteps will be more of our education line. And it was supposed to be like a double play on it. So like Philly, obviously, revolutionary is a good word, but also like the tours themselves.
They party too.
They 100% they did.
So it's like, don't you want to really be in history? Don't you want to fucking party,
learn
drink
how
a little bit,
how they lived,
get a nice mindset, revolution.
But making the tours itself, like I consider to be, and again, it's having a little ego here, revolutionary. We're doing shit that no one else is doing. Like we have this tour called Stand Up and Drink. And so it's a 45-minute comedy show on the trolley. It's BYOB, and then you go to different beer gardens and breweries. Right. All the comedians get a guaranteed pay.
Okay.
Once ticket sales match that, we split the rest of the revenue. And so it's really hard to get free stage time as a comic in the city.
Of course.
And I'm trying to provide a venue, and that's not a lot of money for them.
No, but
like, like we did last Sunday, we had 3 comics. 2 of them got $75 each. The third got got $150 to do. Those other 2 are gonna be pissed now. But to do, they each did a 15-minute set. They got $75 to do 15 minutes of comedy that they would have gladly have done for free.
Man.
Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. They weren't doing shit elsewhere. You know what I mean? But to try to Yeah, I that's what I think. You asked what sets me apart. I want to be the company that values
The person.
right.
The person behind
Right.
all of this.
My drivers get paid 3 times as much as the other tour companies pay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're both fucking global.
Treat them right.
Yeah,
Treat your
right.
people
yeah.
right.
And I'll be honest, it doesn't always work. I've gotten fucked over more than I've gotten benefited from it.
But you treated your people
But you try
right,
to do it.
so you're
My
still
first
here.
driver, I bought the guy his car died. And
say
so
you don't say
I
you
did
I was about to
$2
say,
grand.
I
I put
don't
down
want
him.
I put down $2 grand and bought him a
You
car.
hiring?
He paid back the first 500 and then skipped town on me.
Fucked up, too.
Yeah.
you
He
skip
skipped
town
town.
on you?
I still want to go. I'm like, I still want to roll up at 58th in Baltimore and just fucking slash his tires.
But look, Tim.
And just because it's like it's so frustrating.
But Tim, it worked out though, huh?
Wait,
Yeah,
real
I mean,
quick,
next
Tim,
thing you
this
drive
is-
is good.
What was the because there's some crazy motherfuckers out here in Philly. I know you got at
Some
least
stories.
one crazy story that was like
On
what
the trolley.
fuck is going
On the trolley that you're riding around the
I
city.
mean, we had a guy like my favorite was on. It actually was on the double decker bus.
Okay.
So we're on Columbus Boulevard, right by like Spruce Harbor Park, and we're at a red light. And I look over my left shoulder, and there's a guy in a car next to us rolling a blunt at the red light.
That probably was
And
me.
so
don't
I
know.
called it out. So I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, so it's my left, so it means it's their right. So I was like, ladies and gentlemen, on the right side of your bus, a man rolling a blunt. And now I forget how speakers work, right? So he can hear me. So he looks up. He's got his
He
window
thinks you're
half
like
rolled
ops or
down.
something. He's like,
And
oh,
he's
shit.
like, did you tell him I just got done working a 10-hour shift? And I was like, ladies and gentlemen, little known law in Philly, once you go into overtime, you are allowed to legally smoke weed while driving your vehicle.
Smoke it all.
Not a problem.
You got to get home somehow.
That was kind of
There's
crazy.
traffic. You don't want to be getting mad at everybody.
There was another time in a double decker. We were coming through West Philly, and as we're rolling up to a light, which I didn't realize was turning red because I got my back to the way we're moving, right?
Of course.
And
It's just
so
a big-
there's this mom in the corner just screaming at her little child. Could have been like more than 2. And she grabbed the kid's arm and like yanked him up. I thought she could like pull his arm out of his socket. And so I said, ladies and gentlemen, on the left side of your bus, bad parenting. And then the light turned red. And we
And you
were
just
at
sit
this
there.
intersection. And she had heard every word. And she's like, you mother. And people on the bus are laughing. I'm like, you don't know. No, put your heads down. No one laugh. No one make eye contact. Everyone look down. Everyone look down.
You're
I know
talking about
nobody
anything
on this
else.
bus.
Yeah. It
You're
should
talking
not
about Ben
have.
Franklin again. And you're
Yeah.
just like, so
I was
Ben
just like,
Franklin
we're
was
just going to
over
remain
there.
silent until we
She
get a
just
block
was
away from
crazy.
here.
She didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
Nothing
One more-
happened.
Everybody be quiet.
This is
Everybody shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Wait, yo,
Please.
so real quick, you might. I don't even know if you know about this, but this is like a side. We were talking about history earlier, and then brought
Right.
it to something. So, a place that I think if you haven't already checked out, you should check out. It's in Warminster, though. It's not in Philly, but I don't know. You can make a special trip, but at my office, because I do security. Like I run security systems. I work
Okay.
with all security cameras and all type shit like that. So, the building that I work in, believe it or not, is the building where Buzz Aldrin and what's the other dude's name?
Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong?
Neil Armstrong trained.
Lance Armstrong. Yes.
Lance Armstrong.
Lance
Whatever.
Armstrong has
Yeah.
one nut,
One of
but a
them
lot
Yeah.
of steroids
Yeah.
in him too.
It wasn't one small step for man. It was one nut for man.
one large shot of fucking
One
steroids
large
in his ass. Yeah.
testosterone, steroid-filled nut for man.
No, but I
He's
actually
feeling
work.
both the fuck up.
I actually work.
He's
in
got
a
blue
building-
balls right away.
Yeah.
I work in a building where they actually
Blue
train
ball,
to
yeah.
go to the moon. Like where
That's
I go
insane.
every day is where they train to go to the moon. So
Yeah.
it's still like shit in there. Actually, like they turn it into like a little venue, like a little like a you can get dining hall. You can have sweet 16s, weddings.
Right,
Kids go
yeah,
there
yeah.
for school
It's like
trips,
catering
shit
hall
like
kinda
that.
thing.
It's called the Fuge. You should definitely. We're probably gonna have more soon, to be honest. Probably next week, if not the next week or whatever soon. But
All
you
right.
should definitely take that. Yo,
You said
dude.
they still got the original.
Yo, dude. I was walking through that fucking place, yo, and like, you might not be able to if you were to go there and do like a tour, because you could definitely talk to them, whatever. Like y'all can.
We're
Be
also
partners,
sponsored by
business
them.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Ronald, if you
yeah.
want to shout them out.
Is that
real
right?
fast.
Shout out
Yeah,
to
I
Fuge, sponsored by
Shout out to
Fuge.
Fuge.
Always
We're
looking
sponsored
for
by
people
Fuge
that
at
need
PhuckWithPhilly.
transportation. That's
Yeah,
the
no,
never
but-
bad way to go.
Dude,
Astronaut program. That's pretty. There's a mural in West Philly, and it's got like all famous African Americans, and it's got the first African American astronaut. But the funniest thing is they have him wearing his astronaut helmet. So it's like, well, how the hell do you know? Yeah,
Who is this man?
yeah. I know they just
be
like
anybody.
what's the guy? I think like they were doing a mural, and they got on the artist. They got to them, and like, hey, what does the guy look like? I have no idea. Like,
no.
fuck it, just
fuck it.
Put the
helmet on
fucking
him.
helmet on.
No
I
one
know
knows-
what's
yeah.
going on.
We were cleaning out like the top because we just made the top floor like our office. We turned in our office where like the security businesses ran out of.
right.
Dude, yo, the shit that I fucking saw, it was like this old. You felt like I felt like
history.
First of all, that shit
Do
was
you
some
think-
bullshit. It was
do
all
you
like
th-
some Game Boy fucking controller. Like that's I'm not Game Boys, but like that's the type of technology you can compare it to. It was
Right.
all, like all low shit. So that makes me think like they really go to the fucking moon with that.
Yeah,
shit, yo.
but I also
'Cause
think
I was actually I'm one of the only people that can probably say this. Yo, I was there with a motherfucker. Yo, talk about my boss actually had like it was like a 20th anniversary or 30th anniversary or something. I can't remember what it was, but of them going to the moon, right? And
quote unquote.
hopefully he doesn't see this because I don't know if he told me not to say anything, but I'm gonna say it for you. But he was talking like, yeah, so Buzz actually came down to the 30th anniversary or whatever, and they celebrated it there. So he's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in front of Buzz Aldrin right now. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. So he's like, he calls fucking, what's the other dude's name?
Neil Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong.
Not Lance.
Whatever, one of them Armstrong.
Lance just one ball. Yeah.
I don't know, they brothers or something. They brothers? I don't
No,
know.
they're definitely not.
All
No.
right, yeah, whatever.
Different time period
So
for sure.
Buzz calls me. I was like, bro, like you won't believe where the fuck I'm at. Like I'm at this old training place. I never thought I'd see this shit again. Like you got to come down here. He comes down here. Now you got both them motherfuckers there, right? With my boss, right?
Right.
So they're sitting eating dinner and shit. He said they're talking about like the training. Mind you, the shit is still there. So when he's talking about the shit, he can visualize it, and it makes it that much more cooler because like he's like seeing all this shit firsthand.
Right.
So it's like, but they were talking. He was like, yeah, he was talking about all the training and shit, how it was so brutal and this, that, and the third. But he said he never once talked about being on the moon.
Wow. Well, because
Never once.
he was the second guy. I always felt bad for him because of that, right?
Wait,
And
who
that
was the second
sucked.
guy? Who was the
Yeah,
second
Buzz
guy?
Aldrin's the second.
Yeah,
Is
he
he?
was.
Yeah, Neil Armstrong's the
Armstrong,
first.
dude.
What I'm saying, they both were.
You
both
know,
of them.
Neil backwards.
How much
is
does that
alien.
suck, though, right? Think about it. You hit like, dude, you're one of the first to land on the fucking moon, but you're not the first. You're second,
Yeah.
and barely
You feel
anybody
that forever.
remembers who you are.
But Buzz Aldrin,
So wait, that
Buzz
brings the
Lightyear. That's
question.
what I feel like.
Maybe
Buzz
that is
Aldrin
Buzz.
is.
Yeah,
Does
maybe.
anybody
maybe.
So I feel like
That we
I
didn't
know Buzz Aldrin more than Neil Armstrong.
Yes,
Because I know
here's why I
Buzz
believe.
Lightyear. I know
Here's
Buzz
why I don't buy
Lightyear,
in a lot of conspiracy
know
theories
Buzz Lightyear,
because
bro.
too many people would have to keep their mouth shut for these conspiracy theories
yeah,
to be true.
everybody.
So I heard this thing,
That's
right?
another
What do you
Ben-
think, though? Do you think that we went to the
Our,
moon?
yes.
Ben Franklin said 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead.
Yeah.
And so-
no one's gonna keep their mouth
You want,
shut.
you
That
want
I
my
don't
take?
even know if we-
You want my take, Ronald? All right. So this is what
What do you
happened,
think?
ready?
Yeah,
I think
go
this is what
ahead.
happened, right? Is that they thought maybe they couldn't make it to the moon, right? But they wanted to beat the Russians, so they did some kind of Hollywood thing that they mixed the footage of the actual moon with this Hollywood thing, right? Because they did the Hollywood thing before they went, because they're like, you might die, right?
Interesting.
Another cool thing, right? So the Russians actually sent a dog to space,
yeah,
right?
yeah, Sputnik. I
Sputnik,
think.
yeah. So this is what they did, right? But they didn't realize that dogs love to eat, so they gave it a week's supply of food and it ate itself to death, right?
Wow.
That's not how it worked out.
Yeah, yeah.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
It's a fucking dog. It doesn't fucking
He's a
matter.
dog.
It's like I'm
This is
eating.
breakfast.
They thought he was a
This is
smart
dinner.
dog. In their defense, he was a smart dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, pace yourself, comrade. And he was like,
But Tim,
Yeah.
is there something in Philly that you think that everyone should know as a Philadelphian, like something that's like super important that kind of defines the city in a way? I mean, I know that's a big loaded question,
That
but
people should live here should know.
So-
that like someone that's like, I'm moving here, I should know this
So-
about the city that makes me feel good about it.
so Richard Allen.
Okay.
So
I have
which
no idea who that is.
Yeah,
Off the rip. What the
that's
fuck?
what it is, right? Most people in Philly
have
like,
no
oh,
idea.
like the projects. Yeah, there is a reason his name for him. So Richard Allen, I always say like he'd have been one like the Ben Franklin of Philadelphia, but he was born a slave. So he buys his freedom at the age of 21. Which, by the way, did any of you know that you could buy your freedom
I
as
was
a
just
slave?
about to ask you about that. How the hell does that
Wait,
work?
I-
How much?
that
Wait,
shit
wait,
went over my
wait. How much does freedom cost?
It cost him, I think, $500.
But
At the
time,
time,
that's probably
$500 at the time
$10,000.
Oh,
is like yeah. He was like
Yeah.
And
no
what
at the
is
time.
freedom? What is freedom, man? What are we talking about? Freedom.
But we don't really know what
he
freedom
emancipated.
is.
So he again, there's something else that people don't know. So there was a certain aspect in certain like in probably more in the northern colonies where it was almost akin to like indentured servitude, where you worked X amount of hours.
Right.
If you worked beyond those hours, you got paid. And so he was able to work beyond those hours and get paid and buy his freedom. So he buys his freedom at the age of 21. He and his friend, this guy Alson Jones, they become ordained as the first 2 black ministers in America at Christ Church in Philly.
That's my uncle.
Absalom?
Is
Is
it?
it, so
I was like, that's my dad.
I don't know that.
That's
nigga.
my dad.
That's my dad.
No, I was like, yeah.
Go ahead,
so
man.
Like, you go, sorry.
after the revolution, they're preaching at St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church, which is still in Philly. It's like 4th in race. So the head reverend there, he's trying to keep the black community out of his church. And so the first thing he does is he like let's say Richard Allen, his service was at 6 a.m. and everybody would show up and be like, all right, well, next week is at 5 a.m. Everybody showed up. Next week is at 4 a.m. Everybody showed up. So he realized it doesn't matter what time, they're going to show up for church. So then he decides, the Reverend, he's going to have assigned seating. And he's doing this, he's trying to segregate his congregation. So one day in the middle of prayer service, he goes over to Richard Allen and Absalom Jones. He says, hey, you guys are in the wrong spot. You got to leave. And they said, when our prayer's over. He says, no, you're in the wrong spot. You got to leave now. He says, when our prayer's over. So the prayer ends. Allen gets up, and he thanks his pastor for his time. He says, I won't be back. He goes to 6th and Pine, and he purchases a plot of land, which is, to this day, the oldest owned black real estate in America. On that land, he builds Mother Bethel.
Where is this at?
Mother Bethel, 6th and Pine. So he builds Mother Bethel. It begins as a tiny little shack. It's the first black church in the colonies, the first African Methodist Episcopal church in the world. On the day that he raises the walls of what begins this tiny little shack, he's joined by members of his congregation, which are made up of slaves and free Africans, and this guy, Dr. Benjamin Rush, the most prominent doctor of his time, and other rich white Philadelphians who helped to fund the project, and they all raise the walls together. When they're done, these rich white Philadelphians sit down to a table in the field for lunch. African Americans serve them. They finish eating, they rise in their seats, they ask their counterparts to sit, and then they serve their counterparts in what's believed to be the very first public showing of equality that we know of here in America. It takes place in the 1790s at 6th and Pine. And Philly being the city of brotherly love.
Shout out to fucking Philadelphia.
There you
Clap
go.
it up. Clap it up. Clap it up. Clap it up, Aaron. Start fucking clapping, Aaron. You two tourists. I got a drink in my hand, so I'm gonna bang the table.
I ain't gonna lie. It's a you could teach some shit, man.
Yeah,
Like, I ain't gonna lie. And honestly,
No, but
we need more people like you. Not even for the tourists, but like shit for us. Like I want to know. I want to know everything. So like I was born and raised here. Like I love this city. It's like, but I don't know a lot of the.
Right.
I know a lot of the like history that I want to know about, like shit that like I'm interested in, or but like shit like that. That's fucking cool. Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's good enough.
Well, so the girl's gonna be running the tour for me. Her name is Jade. She just graduated high school a month ago, and she's calling the tour Philly's Black Truth. So that's gonna be her company.
Okay.
Shout out to Jade, yeah.
So you like
and
part
wait, you said you had a
ownership?
website. Shout out your website.
So if it's a walking tour, I don't get anything for it.
Okay.
If it's on the trolley, I take a third to cover overhead.
Okay. Shout out your website. You said you had a website.
Yeah, it's so www.foundingfootsteps.com. And then
Find your
soon,
fucking footsteps and get
Founding Footsteps, and we're gonna launch real soon Revolutionary Tours.
Hell yeah, yo. That shit is cool.
Yeah.
So where do you think this goes from here? Is there a big grand scheme of this? Is there something that is this just like?
I think if I can catch on with locals,
Okay.
I think we could do a lot of good shit in the city.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, we even like right now in year 3, I donated close to $6,000 to this group called Rock to the Future, where they run a after school program Monday through Friday for 3 hours. Kids get a shout out to Rock to the Future. They get an hour of free music lessons, an hour of homework help, and in the 3rd hour they form their own band and they play venues all over the city. Nice. She's in Kensington and Germantown, so 2 pretty rough neighborhoods, doing really great work. And so.
But getting better.
Year 3, we were
right,
sure. So year 3, we were able to donate $6,000 to them, and to be honest, I went in the red in year 3. Like I ended up losing some money, but we were still able to make that donation, which, like, we're happy about. That's my ultimate goal: is to make these tours a way to help funnel funds either back to the school system or nonprofits, or directly into the pockets of artists, and help them. Because Philly's got a great art scene here.
Yes,
we got a great comedy scene. We got a good music scene. We got good. Especially with the mural arts.
That's actually our next episode.
Like putting everything, well, not everything, but you like putting back into the community. You know?
Yeah,
it's doing that.
That's what I think. Like that's the thing. You need people that are willing to do that. Like that guy from Morehouse College, right? The keynote speaker. He's like the first African American billionaire, and then he paid for everybody's.
Oh yes, I did see that.
Was that on the news or something?
So in his commencement speech, he said, "Hey, just so you know, we wiped out all of your student debt." He paid for this first. He was the first black billionaire. But here's the thing: you heard it went viral. You heard about it for 3 or 4 days, and that was it. Why don't I know more about this guy?
Yeah,
I want to know what else is this guy? I want like what?
What else?
Why don't I know more about him? Why don't I know more about him?
Cool.
You need that story should have played. We heard about the guy eating horse shit during the fucking Super Bowl parade for a month. This guy pays off an entire graduating class's student loans at a university.
We hear about it
for
a week.
3 days, and that's done.
This goes back
Story's
to
over.
like, but getting people's attention with a nanosecond. I feel like nowadays people just want to see some people eating shit.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about
because you feel better about your life.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
If you see this guy that's able to buy.
Hey, look, I may not have all I want, but I'm not eating horse shit. Like that's
true.
Yeah,
I'm not talking like me. I'm talking like a consumer. Like I don't want I don't want to like watch and see what this dude's doing. But that's boring. Like
We could get.
who the
I mean,
fuck
that's
is eating cow
you know.
shit and who the fuck is?
But I think that's
out
what's
there hating
fucked
the
up
cow's
about all
ass
this,
right
right?
now? I wanna see
Is that like with the one thing I love social media to the fact that like we're able to do stuff like this. We're able to like do our own thing. There's no kind of like we're not allowed to do this.
Right.
Like we can bring whoever the fuck we want on here.
Right.
Sure.
And we can have our own cameras. We can put it on our own media. It doesn't matter what it's called. It could be called Phuck with Philly,
There's
right?
no such thing as mainstream no more. Did you know
Exactly. And the thing is
that? It's every single.
Right.
the more that you
fucking
go
out here.
off of it, the more mainstream you kind of get in a weird way. Not that like, all right, so at the same time, you almost do want to go mainstream at a point.
But what is mainstream?
A mainstream is this, ready?
There's no
It's
more-
that this is
MTV
my job.
used to be mainstream.
No.
VH1 used to be
That
mainstream.
this is my job.
I mean, corporate
Like this is it. Like I can pay my bills. My
Sure.
children go to school.
Yeah,
I can live a life off of this and be comfortable and do something that's important.
Right.
Right?
I'm thinking like mainstream, like fucking how it used to be. Like mainstream, like there is no more mainstream. I heard that the other day, and I'm like, that hasn't made no much. That makes so much fucking sense.
You
There's
don't
no more
choose.
mainstream.
The thing is, you don't choose why you're mainstream though. You're mainstream if you're popular. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I almost think that like sometimes the people you have with you can make you go mainstream. You ever notice how like a song that you really think fucking sucks and you hear that shit on the radio 50 times a day?
Right.
And then you
And
get
then
kind
after a
of
while,
accustomed to it.
after a month, you're like, all right, it got a little jingle to it.
Right.
That shit, that's where it comes into play. It's just like, I mean, I don't know. That's what it takes to make you can trick somebody into liking your shit. You know what I'm saying?
If you tell me how to do that, 'cause I'm trying to figure that shit out. I'd say it's tough. That's my big challenge now. How do I get locals to learn about me now? And I thought
You don't have to think
The
about
Christmas
strategy.
tour would be
You
the
got-
route.
I'm a local
Well, look.
here, and you already got my like attention.
But here's the thing, ready?
Right.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
For coming on here, because what we try to explain this, and honestly, I think it's since we started bringing on some real people that started doing some real things, like, is that the fact that like we're really here to just like educate. That's what we wanted.
Right.
This is what we wanted. So we talked about journalism, right? This is journalism. This is what it is.
Yeah.
We really got to know Tim. We got to know his background. We got to know about his grandpa. We got to know about his wife, how he started this, everything, right? So there's not a 5-minute little segment interview you can do on CNN where it's like Good Morning America, whatever, that you can do that. But you can do it here because this is what it is. And if you want to listen to it, check it out. Everything
us
like
out.
that. Check us out.
But we also like to talk about bullshit. Let me talk about some bullshit real quick.
All right, talk about some bullshit if you want.
Anybody, y'all heard about like TK? You might not know him, so let me give you a background story of this dude before I tell you what the fuck
Please.
is going on.
Sure. Go for it.
This dude TK, right? That's his name. How old is he?
Right.
17 now.
But how old was he at the time when all this shit was going on? 15. All right, so think about a 15-year-old kid, right? Involved in a murder case, right? Where's he from?
He's from New Jersey and he's from Texas.
How? Where? I don't know. Oh
That's
yeah,
a,
no.
that's a
well,
tough.
this happened in
That's a
Texas.
tough commute.
Yeah, I was about to
That's
say.
a tough commute.
That's
No.
a whole lot of distance
Yeah.
that's
This
getting
motherfucker
commuted
was
right now.
Involved in a couple murders, but he only got caught with one, or I think, right?
But he still got caught with murder,
I
right?
could be wrong. Somebody probably watching this like you wrong.
Sure.
But listen, so he's on the run right now. So he knows people are trying to find him and shit. He's on the run right now from the cops. He comes out with a song called The Race. Like he's running from the cops, and that shit went viral. He's like doing a music video in front of wanted posters of him and shit.
That's
15 years old.
It's pretty fucking gangster.
So
Yeah.
I'll
he
give him
got
that.
caught, right? Shout out TK, man. You got 55 years in jail.
55 years.
I mean, I don't know.
But
If, it
that's
says
it.
he
What
was
about-
involved in the murder. Though.
So there was in the comedy community there was just this big uproar. So there was this comedian who made a joke about
I saw that.
XXX
Triple X Sensation. It's a
Triple
girl.
X
It's a
Sensation,
girl, yeah,
right?
I forgot.
So so he had
Temptations.
$50,000 in cash, going to buy a car, and was shot
yeah.
and killed and robbed.
Yeah.
And so she talked about it, and she said, he got killed. She said, which is really really sad, but also would make a really great Venmo commercial. And it's like, why
Hey,
you?
dude, the community went.
Why are you carrying 50 grand in
Why
cash?
are you carrying-
And so
community
people
went
like went at her.
Oh.
Yeah, so his fans were like threatening her, which that was my favorite line a comedian wrote. He's like, I think because supposedly he had beat his girlfriend while she was pregnant. And
He
so,
did. He
yeah.
actually he actually killed a baby. To be
He
honest,
killed the baby.
Who killed the
Yeah.
baby?
So his
Triple X
fans.
Sensation.
Yeah.
Who's that?
he beat his
Comedian?
pregnant girlfriend.
Yeah.
The baby got. A
So my
miscarriage.
favorite line was this comedian. He wrote, I think the best way for Triple X and Tentacion's fans to honor him is to threaten a woman. It was brilliant. But it's this big thing about what's a joke, what's not a joke, what can you say, what can't you say. To me, I'm like, this was a good joke. This girl made a solid joke.
what do you
It's a great
think about
joke.
that? 'Cause
And she's
you're
got to
a-
apologize for it. I think it's bullshit.
I'm like, because I follow comedy all the way coming back from the greats.
I know, but
Craziest shit I ever heard someone say.
yeah.
That's some shit she said.
Wait, so I'm about to ask a question.
But here's the thing, though.
You think TK got
Make a
more
great
time?
Venmo commercial.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Is it too soon for
Hey,
you?
is it though?
See, but I'm the opposite, dude. I like
Too
me
soon?
and my friend have a race. Like anytime a celebrity passes, we're like, which one of us can make the first joke about it? And like obviously, like it's wrong, but like his family's never gonna see what I'm writing. I understand that, but I don't know. I've always been the mindset of like. Certain people deal with things with humor, and so if that's how you deal with things, like who is someone else to say you shouldn't deal with it that way?
Right.
So do you really think you retired from comedy though?
Yeah, I was not good at it, man. It took me.
I mean, like, you kind of do that.
I do a little bit. I do a little bit on the bus. Like that's my favorite thing. Like if I'm
But
like,
you do though.
if I'm on,
I'll be honest. Is like when I was sitting there doing it, it was like I was actually engaged,
yeah.
and I came
Yeah.
on, not to lie, thinking that I wasn't gonna be engaged.
Oh no, most people think, yeah.
And I was like,
I mean, he was telling us about you. He was like, "Yo, it's this
I was
comedian
like-
dude." He was like, "Is he funny?" Yeah. He was like, "Yeah, he's funny." I'm like,
no, he's actually funny. Like
I,
I
there's
was
certain, it's
I
weird.
was
There's
sitting
certain
there,
tours.
and I was listening. And I was talking to Ed. I'll probably cut all the families, but like at PHL, right? There's
Right.
PHL staff, and then there's me and Holly, right? We're the only interns that they ever hired back, but we're
Okay.
still interns. So it's
Right.
like until someone like dies or fucking
Right,
goes somewhere
right.
else,
nobody
then
died.
hopefully no one dies. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'll tell y'all anyways, but I'm just saying like then we wouldn't have a job, but we like are the interns that do everything, So
Right.
it's like, and we were sitting there, and the whole time I was like sitting there, I was like, this is actually pretty like this is dope. Like I fuck with this, and at the whole time I wanted a beer, to be honest.
Right.
Because I feel like, so do you think that the BYOB like changed the game in a way of this tour guide game? Because I feel like a lot of people, I feel like you loosen.
Yeah,
up.
we're the only BYOB tour, right? And
Yeah,
Philly's a
sure.
BYOB city.
Yeah.
It helps and it hurts.
Okay.
It definitely makes me funnier.
Sure.
But then you also get like on the later tours, like on Saturdays we run it at 1 and 4. So a
Okay.
lot of times at a 4 o'clock tour, like the worst is like you get a bachelorette party. And so I'll have
It's
30,
not about you. Yeah.
34
like-
people on the bus. Half of them are with the bachelorette party. And out of those, like, whatever, 16 girls, 12 of them knew what they were signing up for. They're actually excited to, like, take this comedic tour or whatever.
Yeah.
The other 4 are just going along with the group.
Right.
And they don't shut the fuck up the entire time. And then every drink they have, they get one
Just
octave
gets
higher
deeper
and
and
just
deeper
louder
and
and
deeper
louder
and
and to the point where it's like they're interrupting the tour.
Sure.
The other guests are getting frustrated, and that end of it can be tough sometimes. People always ask like, oh, why don't you do a happy hour tour? Your BYOB do a happy hour because the later it is in the day, the more drinks people have consumed before they get on the tour.
And you ain't
And
trying
so
to
I'm
do
just
that shit.
right.
Yo,
We do it with our Christmas tour. I mean, people.
Well, Christmas
Just
time's a beautiful
sloppy
time to
drunk,
be-
man. We have a
Well,
10.
I'll do Lyft
We have a
every now
tour
and
that
then. I'm
starts at
scared
10
somebody-
o'clock at night, and it is.
Yeah,
Ooh.
fucking.
You do Lyft? I saw a
I
great
do Lyft.
great
I'm scared
story.
somebody gonna throw up in my car. I'm like, you listen, you
So
drunk?
this
What you
is-
had? You good?
This is before Uber. Before Uber.
Yeah.
So cause I'm a lot older. So I listened to your thing and you're saying how you guys are born like between 93 and 96.
We were
I guess,
born-
right?
I was
Around-
born in 95.
90, okay. I
All
graduated.
95.
I graduated high school in 96. So
Damn.
yeah.
made me feel
So
like a baby
this
just
is
now.
before Uber.
But we all put each other on.
I'm
That's how
going
it
to
works.
pick up my girlfriend in South Philly after the Mummers Parade. So it's a shit show. I'm at the corner. I'm waiting for her to get in the car, and this drunk couple just gets in the back of my car. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And they like throw an address out at me. I'm like, "I'm not a fucking cab." And they repeated the address. I'm like, "I'm not a cab."
Get the fuck out.
And the guy takes a 50 out of his wallet, and I'm like,
Fuck it, I'm a cab.
"Meters on." Yeah,
I
let's
said
go.
I don't want to. I said I meant I don't want to brag. That's
Yeah.
what I meant.
I don't want to brag.
I don't want to brag.
This is a
I'm a
luxury
cab.
car. This is a
Yeah.
luxury vehicle right now.
All right, let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah, Uber is brilliant. Uber, you know.
It is brilliant.
Yeah.
No, but I ain't gonna lie. Like he was saying, cause he was coming home. He was like, "Yo, dude, I met this tour guy. Yo, that shit is fucking genius." And I ain't gonna lie, just from being probably only cause I live here, it was just like I don't know. But like now actually
Right.
seeing it, like
You want to take
you're
it.
changing the lane almost. It's almost like you're like putting a different spin on it. A lot of times
Yeah.
people go to tours, and when he said tour, it's almost like you hear
It's
tour. and
boring.
It's,
It's
just
like this.
yeah.
It's like this audio
Yeah.
tape kind of thing.
It's historical
wah,
and yeah, it's a
If you
it's
can make
right.
me chuckle.
That's
It's
all
the
it comes
college
down to.
professor who's like
Reading out the book.
clearing his throat every time he goes to say something because he thinks he's so important. And
Yeah.
that was always my thing. Like I try not to take myself too seriously.
Right.
I lose a little bit of that when I do have the drunk bachelorette girls. I start to take myself a little too seriously.
Sure.
I probably think my tour is more important than it really kind of is. I get annoyed about it, you know.
No, fuck
But I don't know if it's that I'm taking myself too seriously or if it's like I know I have a good tour, and
Boundaries.
2, like I work my ass off for this. So
The
it's
fact
like
that
just
you mix the
shut the
comedy
hell up.
with it is-
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what's up. And I was saying that because like I don't know if you my fault. Which one? I
I
wanted.
was just gonna ask him what your schedule is. I want to take a tour.
I was just
So
about to say.
You're good.
The BYOB Comedic History Tour, which is called Historically Hilarious, is Saturday at 1 and 4.
Is this tomorrow?
We're gonna start. Yeah.
You wanna go? Are you doing
You're more than welcome.
Is
I
there
got
anything
some
that's
spots.
coming up next
Good
week?
thing. I'm
Because
down
this
to
might
go.
take a few days. That's the only thing. It might
Yeah,
take
it's
2
every
days,
Saturday,
so-
1 and 4. I do a walking
Saturday,
tour
1 and
7
4.
days a week.
Is
We're
there
gonna
a
be
weight?
launching a tour in September called Haunted History.
Hey.
And it's gonna be less like. Because everybody's like a ghost tour. I'm trying to do a different angle where it's like true stories
Right.
Sure.
that are, you know,
Creepy.
um,
True stories that are creepy.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good
And
call.
then
There's probably
we're
plenty of
launching
those.
a tour called the Urban Bourbon Tour. So you do 3 bourbon tastings at 3 different locations, and then in between it's stories about Philly's Prohibition. So Philly had a sick Prohibition scene. Everybody talks about New York and Chicago.
Yeah, man.
Philly had a crazy Prohibition scene.
Right.
So we're the chemical capital of the world, almost, right? So we were able to get a lot of alcohol because you needed it for chemicals. So a lot of alcohol gets run through
These ingredients.
Philly.
We all just looked at each other.
So there was
Fuck this shit,
yeah.
bro.
So
What are you drinking right now?
No, I'm drinking rum. I
there
drink
was a
lot of
guy.
that rum.
His name was Max Hoff, who was the biggest bootlegger in Philly.
Okay.
His police bribe payroll in today's dollars was $10 million a year.
Shit.
10 million in today's dollars. 10 million a year. He was
chopper
spending
shit.
on bribing the Philly
Oh,
police.
just bribes.
Just on bribes.
Oh,
Just on bribes.
So it's not even touching what he made.
What he was bringing in. That was just his police bribe payroll in today's dollars.
Making pride.
Right, exactly. He's making 10 times that.
Tenfold.
Right. So we had a big. So that's the that tour. So and there's also this guy named Smedley Butler who was just this insane character. He's in the Marines. He's one of only 14 people in history to get the Medal of Honor twice. And shit was so bad in Philly in the 1920s that the mayor calls the president of the United States, who was Calvin Coolidge at the time. He's like, dude, I need fucking help. And so the president pulls Smedley Butler out of the Marines and sends him to Philly to run our police department.
Oh shit.
So you know how Philly has wards, like sections, right?
Yeah.
So he comes in and he notices that there's 28 wards and then like 22 police precincts. And he does the math in his head and he's like, oh, this is so that the ward leaders can control the police precincts. And it helps the corruption of it.
Yeah.
So and he orders a 48-hour recalculation of things. And he goes from 20-something precincts to 12 precincts, like in 48 hours, right? So now he can control those 12 precincts. He can bring bribes down. His first year in office, he closes down 2,500 speakeasies in the first fucking year. And then,
crazy, dude.
so then this one guy, 2,500
Jesus,
speakeasies
dude.
in a year. And
Is
then
that good though?
this guy says to him like, "Oh, you're just going after the little guy, right?"
Yeah.
So he goes and he padlocks the doors at a Ritz-Carlton. They fire him 2 days later because now they're fucking with their spots.
Oh yeah.
So like now this is where the big politicians hang out and all that. So they fire him.
yeah.
He was too successful.
Okay.
So that's the whole like. So the first third of the tour is me talking about that guy, and then you go into your spot, and then you come back on, and now I'm in character as that guy. And the next 2/3 of the tour are me. It's like a police briefing. Like everybody in the tour is a cop, and I'm like
Smart, dude.
briefing you on the mob guys.
But
Right.
you don't
That's like-
you don't consider that
Right.
comedy though.
That's not a comedic tour. No.
But
that's not a
I
comedic
mean,
tour.
what
That's
makes
gonna
that
be different.
though?
People
Because
are into
people are
that
learn-
shit,
I mean, but,
especially
like,
you know
Let's
in
talk about
October.
George Carlton, right? It's like this dude like
George
really.
Carlton. You know
yeah.
who George Carlton is?
But I'm
Carlin?
saying
Well,
Carlin.
Carlin.
Yeah,
Carlin.
sorry. But I'm saying like it was educational. So does comedy have to not be educational?
A lot of times, comedy. Listen, let me tell you about. Cause I study. It's one thing. When I find something I love, I study the fuck out of it.
Right.
Comedy was one of them things. So
You know Eddie Murphy's
it's-
coming back.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
special.
He's
I
dropping
heard.
some. Well, he's on.
Did you watch
Comedians
the?
and
Did you watch it?
Yeah,
No,
it was
I
pretty good.
It was really
Dude,
good.
I
It was very good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a smart dude. I heard all these stories about him and like these Hollywood parties they would throw for fights, and everyone's like, "Dude, Eddie was the funniest motherfucker at this
Yeah,
party."
yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
like Dave Chappelle, like Chris Rock.
you
Fucking
just
everybody
hit
else.
what I said. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times, comedy.
Dave Chappelle is.
All you're saying.
I
I'm
think the
about to get Dave Chappelle in a minute. All you're
I
saying
think the goat.
is the truth.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, the truth is hilarious. It might hurt sometimes,
He is.
but
I-
that shit is hilarious.
I
Dave
love-
Chappelle is one of the. You can't compare Dave Chappelle to no one.
No.
He's fucking brilliant. You ever hear him
Even
talk
down to
about?
his
People say
delivery-
maybe Richard Pryor, but
No,
I feel
no,
like
no, no.
Chappelle was on
Yeah.
another level
I'm
too. How
talking
many
about-
specials he dropped
I'm
that
not
were
talking
so
about the
good?
level. I'm talking about actually compare like an artist. I say, oh, he sounds like so and so. He sounds like so and so.
He's
You
his own
cannot
thing.
compare Dave
The Chappelle Show,
I feel like I'm in a room
everything
with
that
him
he's done.
sometimes.
He's brilliant. The one
He's a
when he
genius.
talks about the there's a specific type of monkey. So they ask him why he left Comedy Central, and he talks about a specific type of monkey, like in Africa, that or wherever, maybe not wherever it was, that to trap them, the poachers or hunters of this animal, they would dig these holes and they would put salt in it, and when the monkey reached in and grabbed the salt, its paw would expand,
So good stuff.
and it would get trapped in the hole. And all I had to do was let go of the salt, and but they wouldn't. They would hold on that salt.
That's an excellent analogy.
And they'd come, and he said, "I just let go of the salt.
I see where you go.
I just let go of the salt."
And just bounce.
Brilliant.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I watched him talk about this issue in his hometown, some type of issue where the police had come to a party and they overstepped.
Right.
Overstepped. And he spoke before the board, and he said, "I've lived in this town for X amount of years, and the police department has always been really good to me and really good to my family. Whatever I've needed, they've given to me." He said, "But I was at that event, and they crossed the line, and they need to make amends."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what we're missing here.
Yeah.
That's what we're missing. Because you have one side of a conversation who's saying like, well, if he didn't resist, and they're ignoring clear case of brutality, and then you have the other side of the conversation who think
Hate
it's
the
just
police,
everybody, right? And no one wants to find that fucking middle road.
That middle road.
It's
We
always
always talk about that.
the
Comedy
outside
is
of it.
It's a lot of shit. I always say
It's
this.
satire. It's
America-
satire on life. That's
Yeah.
what it is. It's like pretty much telling you the direct like cause, but in a
Right.
different perspective.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much just like take you outside the picture, make it kind of a joke so you kind of understand it
Right.
simply. And that's what teaching is.
Yeah.
And I feel like teaching is making anything like challenging simple.
Simple. The measure of intelligence.
And that's what
is
makes
when
a
you take
great
something
teacher is to change what something big is into something
Small.
Right.
The measure of intelligence is when you take something simple, complicated, and make it simple.
And break it down.
And
Break
the
it
measure
down.
of
Break it down.
ignorance or whatever you want to call it is where you take something simple and make it too complicated to understand.
But Tim, we've been going for like 2 hours. So this has been a very. So is there any closing thoughts or anything you want to let us know? To shout out to anything?
We're
any
going to your show
up-and-coming
tomorrow. I don't know
thing?
about you.
Yeah,
bro.
no,
Yeah, we're
1
doing
and
that
4,
shit.
man.
I'm
Either
doing that
time,
shit.
please do.
Yeah.
So we leave from the
Dang.
Betsy Ross house.
Okay.
So every Saturday at 1 and 4, we're gonna be adding more dates.
Yeah.
And
Stop
adding
at
more
bars too and
tours.
shit, or no?
We don't, not on that tour, but you can bring on with you, and then
Sure.
we did for your tour because we would just shooting some special things and all.
Yeah.
But
This might be a controversial question, but if marijuana turns illegal,
so it's funny. So somebody said, somebody said to me, they were like, "Oh, you should do a kind of bus tour, like a kind of right."
oh shit!
Yeah. Great
But I'm like, but then
I would sign
yeah, I'm like, and then my driver gets fucking high and tested by the DOT, and I lose
Yeah,
my
maybe that's not a good
yeah.
idea.
We don't gotta
Yeah,
answer that.
I'm fine. I
Marijuana,
mean,
maybe.
edibles.
Sure.
There's edibles. You can.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
okay
That
with
actually
that.
wasn't- You didn't have to answer that.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah,
But
as
it's
long
your
as
own business.
just
Isn't
tell
that
me it's a
kinda
normal
nice?
gummy bear.
This man isn't answering anything.
That's what the freedom is. Like
That's
you
the
can
freedom
do
of being an
whatever the fuck you want.
entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah. So the answer would be no. It would never because there's too many liabilities associated
Sure.
and that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I
Right?
wasn't expecting
But on
to
the
say it. If you
outside,
would've
no,
said yes,
sure,
I'd have been
sure.
like, oh,
But I don't.
shit,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want this motherfucker.
But I don't like if somebody
yeah,
comes
yeah.
on and if like and they're like I'm like I don't
That was-
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't like nobody's ever caused fights usually when over that. It's
Yeah,
like
usually
No,
just
they
want
just
it's
want
usually the
Funyuns.
opposite.
One
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
It's usually the opposite.
I mean, that was another one of my ad. Like that's when my tours at its best. The more I can ad lib. Sometimes I can do it constantly throughout the tour because there's just material around me. Sometimes not as much. But we were coming around Love Park, and there was this was a couple years ago when they were trying to legalize or decriminalize, and so there was a big rally in Love Park, and people to legalize it, and that was my I was like on your right. They were like I think my joke was like what do we want? I'm like, Funyuns, water. Like when do we want it? Not before noon. Like this, as later in the day as we could get it would be great. So
Oh shit, dude.
So and in closing thoughts,
Sure.
I think that the common ground thing. I think if we can divert away from trying to find out why we're different and instead focus on what the common ground is, I think that as a country we are so hyper focused on what divides us. And I think that's very,
what binds
very
us.
intentional.
Right.
The largest race riots
Right.
in the history of the country took place here in Philadelphia.
Wait, the largest
2 blocks
race
from
riots, you said?
Largest race riots in the history of the country in the mid-1800s.
Do we got time? Could we add this?
Right,
down?
I'll make it
keep
real
on.
quick.
No,
I'll
no,
make
no,
it real
take
quick.
it. Go
No,
ahead.
no.
2 or 3 blocks from here, between the blacks and the Irish,
Right.
because they were competing for the same low-income jobs. And so the city passed some ordinances that made things slightly easier for the Irish. And then when things are slightly easier for you, it makes you seem a little bit better. And you have this
So-
feeling of superiority.
So the people in charge made the poor fight the poor.
Right. So now,
There's
right,
no-
because if
they
I,
just
so like,
split it.
I'm
Finally
Irish.
conquered. Bitches
You-
just having a fight over each other. That's what
No,
they're
but
doing
they,
now.
but they
Right.
forced the
They're
fight.
trying to
forced the
start that
fight.
shit.
So that's
now.
right. That's the thing. Like, so I'm Irish, right? You guys, I'm assuming, are black. So
That's a very good assumption.
What?
if you and I are fighting, blaming each other for our problems and fighting each other over crumbs, we're not paying attention to the guy that's walking away with a loaf of bread.
Fuck exactly.
That's what it is.
I'm
so it's
happy you said
intentionally
support for
designed to
support.
make, and it's been like from the beginning, So like I don't mean like we say America's built on the backs of slaves. It's true, but it's also built on the backs of indentured servants who had fucking nothing as well. Right. And they were told to hate one another because they both had nothing. One had more, but still nothing. Nothing. Right? And so it's when Thomas Paine writes Common Sense, it's fucking brilliant. All of our founding fathers had these egos, right? He's like, when you read this pamphlet, you won't see a single name attached because it's not about the individual. It's about society. And the American Revolution isn't about America. It's about the world. And we become this domino. We're the first domino to fall. After our revolution, France has one, Scandinavia has one, Poland has one, because the people rise up. Today, we can't rise up with guns. It's just not going to happen today, right? It's just not. But we can rise up in other ways, like you said, like through social media, and it's not going to happen if we're only focused on what's dividing.
He's talking about ASAP Rocky right now because everybody else is. Yeah. Isn't that funny how much impact we have now? It's like I feel like people get it twisted. They're thinking that like it's almost like they think of this like social media president, right? And that is shitty for sure because I dignified like my president is someone that's like bigger than that. It's like someone that stands as all of us, someone that could represent everybody, right?
Right.
But then we also influence this. So it's kind of like this weird kind of construct where it's like, are we getting more involved or are we less involved now?
No, I feel like our generation.
I feel like we're way more involved in everything, every aspect of media, life, everything. Right. I mean, maybe it's not good because there's like this gang mentality that comes on, right? Where it's like, throw the torches on. We're not going to listen to this person's stories. We're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt or anything, right? Yeah. So we're after this motherfucker. I feel like that's fucked up. But at the same time, we are thinking as a populace.
Right.
More so than I think ever. Because you had people that ran newspapers. You had people that ran media. Yeah. But now we run media. Yeah. That's what it is.
And more so on an individual level. I feel like the younger generations are starting to quote-unquote get it.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think they're becoming a little bit like pussified, for lack of a better word.
Pacified?
No, pussified. Like,
facts. Pacified, pussified, same shit.
We said this in the beginning. This
fuck yeah. Listen, you don't understand.
All right, ready? I'll tell you one thing. The one thing that saved my life was doing sports. Just do something. Do something that you put your whole heart into.
Do something.
And you lose.
We should have a mandatory, like, 1 year in like even like the Coast Guard, or 1 year in like Habitat for Humanity,
totally
something.
Agree to that.
1 year before you go off to college, where you have to do something, where
hard
you're giving
labor.
back in some way.
Hard labor.
Yeah, or just giving back in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's what like my. First of all, can we acknowledge how hard their job is to take over 2 hours of a merry-go-round?
It's not that hard,
okay.
I promise.
All right, but that I started out like I had like look I had a very heavy-handed father. I mean, very heavy-handed, and because I think I became the kid that got bullied all the time in school. Got constantly getting the shit kicked out of me throughout all throughout school. Around 7th grade, I started volunteering in this baseball league for kids with Down syndrome and things, and like I thought my life was shitty, right? And then you go there and you see these kids and how fucking happy they are to be playing baseball for an hour or two. You know what I mean? Change your whole perspective, because you know there's got to be some sense of like of community and that.
But they'll like twist it around. The way they do things like that is like like now like take technology for example. Their whole goal is to make life easier for us. Is it, or is it to make us lazy? You know what I mean? It's almost just like.
Dude,
the way
thinking
things
skills
are presented to this generation is as if like we want to help you.
As someone who taught critical thinking skills we're fucking on a huge decline because you don't need to think about shit now. You put it in Google and you get the answer.
Have to think about the R word. I'm not gonna say it, but everybody knows what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah,
like, honestly, like I don't think that's like I heard Joe Rogan say like, or not Joe Rogan. I heard Elon Musk on Joe Rogan say like. Humans are slowly turning into cyborgs.
Right.
And then he broke
with the phones and everything.
What I got in front of me right now.
Yeah.
If I don't have my phone, I feel pretty disconnected from a lot of shit.
These are all attachments that we've been feeling like we need, and when we don't have them things, we're like, oh shit, like.
But so here's my thing.
That's all a cyborg is. Cyborg has attachments.
With my buddy who's 25 years old.
Shout out John.
Shout out John Loeb, and he's actually he sold his product to Elon Musk. For Tesla, straight out of Drexel University. He's a super brilliant guy.
Brilliant.
And brilliant. Like
everybody need to check it out. Check it out.
Yeah, seriously. But what I kind of got from this is like, let's think about it, right? People are driving these Teslas, right? I see it a lot more than I did before. Right. Legit. But like, we think of these robots as these like things that will fuck us up, right? But what if they will save us from our own selves? Just hold on. No,
That's
ourselves. Just be honest. The thing that we've done to our planet, the things that we've done to ourselves, the thing we do it to our own communities. Right. What if there's someone that was like, you guys are fucking doing this wrong?
You're absolutely right. But
someone that's like can calculate for us like a calculator. That's like, hey, maybe this isn't the right way to do things.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like
I feel what you're saying, but like. This is all right. This is about to get real spooky. You know what I'm saying? But like,
we're about to go into another.
This is about to get
like
real
6 podcasts in one. But
you know what?
You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. I don't give a fuck. You know what? I'm not doing anything else. I don't give a fuck.
Can I go
Let's
in
talk
a
our shit.
Isn't
Let's talk our shit.
it somebody's birthday? Did you say it was somebody's birthday?
Yeah,
she's at the bar by herself right now.
That's
is
my
that your girlfriend?
No, it's not my girlfriend.
Okay.
No, wait, real quick though. But
That's another great Mitch Hedberg
I'm gonna
line.
cut that out.
He said, "I don't have a girlfriend. I just know a girl who'll be really upset if she heard me say that."
No, wait, no, but this goes back to what I was saying. Like,
Yeah, we're gonna cut that
saying?
out. No, I'm joking. What's up? I was saying that we talk about how robots will fuck us up, right?
Oh yeah, all right.
But do you not think that like intelligent things that are better than us might help us?
But what you were just saying, like,
you know what I'm saying?
When it gets all down to that, me and Keenan talk about this a lot. All right, really think about this.
Sure, I'm thinking. I got my thinking kit.
Even down to like, I'm just using this as an example.
Sure.
We tend to just think there's a difference between knowledge and information.
Okay.
There's a big difference between knowledge and information. Knowledge are
to
things that you can experience, that you have experienced, and information is shit that's been told to you.
Okay.
I believe that a lot of the shit that we're running off of is information.
Facts.
Right.
A lot of people are saying that the earth is flat. Who are you to say that it's round?
Well, I mean,
who are you to say that it's round as an individual?
But there's a lot of
We're
things
going off the information that people gave us that they said that shit is round.
I'm not gonna talk flat earth shit though. I'm not gonna do that.
So as far as like all this global warming shit, I mean like
how good
I think
is
it's
that?
definitely true.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Meteors that hit this fucking earth and shit. You telling me that plastic is gonna kill us?
How good is that weed right now? I'm just curious.
I don't know. Am I on to something right now?
No,
I feel
I don't think so. I'm sorry. No, because you've got satellites now that could show, and you know shadows where fall and seasons, and you know what I mean. Like there's.
But it's just like I don't know.
We're definitely.
If it was flat, you wouldn't have seasons.
Don't call me a conspiracy theorist, but I just.
I won't.
Feel like
no, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying to an extent that it's like,
right.
Why do we accept?
Yeah. It's not a secret that the government lies.
Sure, but you gotta accept science to a certain extent.
Sure.
Right? You gotta accept science to a certain extent, and all these things they come from science.
We're not knowledgeable of that.
Sure.
No, we don't know, but you get a whole again. If this shit was bullshit, you wouldn't have 99% of scientists agreeing on things. If it was bullshit. Now it doesn't matter because eventually somebody. Yeah, but you could make the same amount of money by going against the grain. As a science, right? If 98% of the fucking scientists are saying one thing, and you're in the 2%, you'll probably make more than anybody in the 98% because you've got the different opinion, and you'll be right. So you can't.
That's where. See, that almost kind of like. I mean, I don't know. It could go either way because like a lot of times like shit that like kind of what you just said like the 2%. The conspiracy theorists sometimes are that 2% that you're talking about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of times they get, this motherfucker crazy and shit. Like, he's crazy shit.
Right.
But a lot of times what they're saying kind of makes sense to a certain point. We don't know if that shit could be a trapezoid. You see what I'm saying?
I guess so. But I mean, there's also a lot of other things that go into it, though. That's the only thing I'm saying. Yeah. It's definitely not flat.
But I'll
saying tell it to all the other motherfuckers is definitely.
But what I'm saying is that's coming from an information.
You can shoot a bullet. You can shoot a bullet.
We can't confirm.
Experience that.
We as individuals.
A bullet drops as the Earth spins.
We gotta trust the messenger at this point. That's all I'm saying. We're trusting the messenger. Our truth is in the hands of the messenger at this point. So we're hoping that they're telling us the right shit and we're just running with it. You know what I'm saying? That's all my point was. And that weed is strong as fuck. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, that's what I say. We're
I'm
definitely
feeling that shit.
Yeah, I'm fucking drunk as shit.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Anyways, all right. So look. So Tim, this has been a.
Oh wait, real quick. Shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah.
Jordan 215. Fuck with. I'm saying, yeah.
We can do that after the
cast.
cast.
Till death do us part.
Yeah. Get your fresh cut
and Boots
your
Fighting
clothes
Out of Philly. You can check it out on your local streaming sites and everything like that.
I actually got aired on TV this weekend. Was it this weekend or last weekend?
That was
well, not him, but his doc.
My doc, yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up,
like 3-4 days ago.
Congratulations, bro.
Thanks, appreciate it, fellas. So, Tim, this has been amazing. This has been so much fun. We went through all the different scales of I mean, fucking everything. I don't
covered a lot
know
of
how
ground.
else. I can't really put it into one category, to be honest. So that makes a great podcast. This has been fun as shit.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, everybody that's been a part of this. Thank you, everybody. Till next time, kids. We're Phuck with Philly.
Fuck with us.
We're out. Bang! Let's go, fellas.